To honor Sergeant Lee Sorensen inside Utah State University Spectrum. Sergeant Sorensen served as a law enforcement officer for 17 years.
16 of those years were with the Garland Police Department. He's heavily decorated after being awarded the Distinguished Service Award by the Tremonton Fire Department in February of this year for his dedication, support, professionalism, and commitment to excellence in assisting fire and EMS units during incidents. Sergeant Sorensen and his wife Lynette also received Garland's City Wheelin Award in 2020. It recognizes individuals who have significantly impacted the city. He was also recently promoted to sergeant and planned to be sworn into his new role on August 22nd, just 5 days after the shooting. He was 56 years old and is survived by his wife and their children. Alexandria Bonilla, KSL News Radio.
Our top national story this hour from ABC News. A senior White House official tells ABC News President Trump revoked Secret Service protection for Kamala Harris. ABC News White House correspondent Karen Travers has the latest.
President Trump on Thursday revoked Secret Service protection for former Vice President Kamala Harris starting in September. That's according to a copy of a memo sent to the Secretary of Homeland Security, reviewed by ABC News, that authorizes DHS to discontinue security-related procedures for Harris. Former President Biden extended Harris's protective detail an additional year on top of the 6 months she's required by law to have a Secret Service detail as the former vice president. That's according to multiple officials. Karen Travers, ABC News, the White House.
Your money at this moment, the Dow is down 183. That's 0.4%. We're at 45,448. Coming up, a beautiful holiday weekend in store. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 9:02. Mornings are for recharging.
And they're for starting your day right.
We volunteer to join you in the car. Get news and weather at 102.7 FM during the most important part of your day.
Andy and Amanda, each morning between 5 and 9 on KSL News Radio.
He's Donald Trump's #1 enemy in Congress, Chicago Senator Dick Durbin. And now Dick Durbin has a new scheme, a government takeover of your credit card. Today, consumers have thousands of choices in credit cards, all with equal, strong security. But Durbin's plan is less competition and less security. And that means more risk for your credit and your identity. Tell Republicans in Congress, stop Dick Durbin's takeover of your credit card before it's too late.
Paid for by Electronic Payments Coalition.
Ticket packages for the Utah Mammoth 2025-26 season are available now. From full season and half season packages to mini plans and other flexible options, choose the ticket package that fits you best and be part of the action all season long. Call or text 801-325-PUCK to talk with a rep or visit nhl.com/Utah/tickets/season tickets to learn more.
Texting enrolls you into recurring automated text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
Hey, Dan, how you doing? Haven't seen you around the gym for a while.
Yeah, I've really fallen off. Since I turned 40, I just don't get the results I used to get.
Could be lower testosterone.
Lower T?
Yeah, I went through it a while back. Once you hit 40, your body has less free testosterone. I got Nugenix Total T, and it's made a huge difference for me.
I've seen that ad on TV. Is it for real?
Oh, yeah. The key ingredient is something called Tesnor, which helps boost free and total testosterone levels to help you trim up and stay lean.
And it's made a difference for you?
Man, I feel like I'm in my 20s again, at work, in the gym, and in the bedroom.
Are they still giving out complimentary bottles for people to try it for themselves?
Yeah, you just need to send them a text.
Text ALL to 321-321 right now for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T, the #1 selling testosterone booster at GNC. Plus, text now and we'll include a bottle of Nugenix Thermo, our most powerful fat incinerator ever, to help you get back into shape fast, absolutely free. Text ALL to 321-321. That's ALL to 321-321.
I'm Christian Staples with Arctic Spas. Our Labor Day clearance sale is here through September 6th. Clearance savings on hot tubs, swim spas, all-weather pools, cold tubs, and saunas. Here's the scoop. One of the most coveted options for the Arctic Spa is called Smart Top, the easiest cover to open and close. So easy, you can do it with just 2 fingers, no joke. The Smart Top is normally $4,000, but you get it for free. You get the only spa built for Utah's harsh climate, a hybrid heating system that will cut your electric bill in half, automatic natural salt water, automatic pH control, remote control from your smartphone, the longest warranty, a free Smart Top Easy Open hardcover, and a clearance sale to save you money. For hot tubs, swim spas, all-weather pools, cold tubs, and saunas, check out Arctic Spas now through September 6th. Visit ArcticSpasUtah.com or one of our 3 Arctic Spa stores stores covering all of Utah in Salt Lake, American Fork, and St. George. Arctic Spa, the only spa built for Utah's harsh climate, and now on sale too.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Mountain America's My Style checking account. And here's Heather Kelly.
Well, this disabled vehicle or a crash that we had northbound I-15 right at the point of the mountain had been blocking 2 left lanes of the freeway. Then UHP slowed everybody down all lanes of travel so they could drag the car all the way over to the right side. So now you've got the right lane and shoulder blocked, so traffic is backed up into Lehigh. A different disabled vehicle on the west side belt over by the airport, that has been moved over to the right shoulder, and all the emergency vehicles there have cleared out, so our delays are gone now as you come down from Legacy Parkway. And the crash on Mountain View Corridor northbound in Harriman, that is in the final cleanup stages, but we still have the right lane and shoulder blocked with a couple emergency vehicles near Rosecrest Road. Get ready for a battle at the border September 6th at Heritage Park in Garden City. Experience thrilling competition, live entertainment, and family fun. Don't miss the action. Mark your calendar now. Visit Scenic Idaho. Heather Kelly in the KSL Traffic Center.
Partly cloudy today, a slight chance of a shower with a high around 82. Tomorrow, sunnier and warmer up to 85 tomorrow. Right now, it's 68 degrees. I'm Amanda Dixon from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
The all-new Inside Sources. Your inside access to the people and policies shaping Utah's future. Here are Greg Skordas and Holly Richardson on KSL News Radio.
We're starting this morning with day 2 of our end of watch coverage of the funeral services of the 2 fallen officers from the Tremont and Garland Police Department. Yesterday, we had a very moving ceremony up at the Logan Event Center, at Utah State University's Event Center for Officer Eric Estrada. Today, his partner, Sergeant Lee Daniel Sorensen's funeral will begin in about an hour, and we'll be covering that as well. We are seeing people walk into the Spectrum right now getting ready for that ceremony. We expect it to be somewhat similar, although the 2 officers' careers were different and similar in interesting ways too. It's funny, it's interesting, I should say, to read both of their obituaries because they had so much in common, considering they were almost a generation apart.
Yeah, no, it's something that we'll be following for the entire show. But right now we have KSL News Radio's Eric Cabrera, who's live in Logan. Hi, Eric. How are you?
Hi, good morning, Holly and Greg. Good to hear from you.
Good. Can you describe what you're seeing right now?
Absolutely. You know, I would describe it very simply as like solemn, but very united. I'm seeing groups of, officers and military members greeting each other. Some, sharing a quiet laugh, others standing silently. People just kind of gathering. They've got family filtering in as well, and you could see them just embracing one another. And at the entrance here, as you enter the Spectrum, there's pictures, of course, of Sergeant Lee Sorensen, flowers. Everyone is stopping to just, get a view of that and take the moment in before taking their seats. Also, outside, as I mentioned before, there's a massive American flag waving over the parking lot. And I think that's a real reminder that this is bigger than one department, right? It's really the whole community of first responders coming together.
Eric, can you tell us what you expect in terms of the timeline of events today?
Yeah, so today's going to run a lot like yesterday from what I see so far. One of the big differences is going to be the procession, right? So we're going to hear from leaders. We're going to hear from Governor Spencer Cox. We're going to hear, of course, from family members as well of Sorensen. But that procession, instead of heading literally just a few steps away to the Logan Cemetery, they're going to be bringing him home to Tremont today.
So on that procession afterwards, what can people expect? Or how many cars do you know, or how long does that procession take?
So I actually don't know. However, if it's anything like we saw, earlier last week, and then even last year with the Santa Quin police officer, it's quite a big motorcade. I mean, it's definitely visible. I was actually heading home from Tremonton as I saw them coming from Taylorsville up to Tremonton. And I mean, it lasts for a good little while, even if you're heading in the other direction.
Yeah.
Yesterday, we heard from both their chief of police, Dustin Cordova, and our Governor Cox. Do we expect to hear from both of them today?
I believe so. Yes, they will be speaking today. We'll be hearing from them, yeah, we'll see. We'll see all how this shakes out. We'll be here to make sure that you guys know what's going on.
Thanks for joining us with that update, Eric. We have Amanda Dixon in studio with us right now to help us with this coverage.
I was just looking at the program for today's
Yeah.
funeral, and it does say that both Governor Cox and Chief Dustin Cordova will speak. It also says that Kirk Larson will speak. The eulogy will be given by Lieutenant Skylar Gailey. A musical number by cousins, nieces, and nephews. I thought that would be lovely. They'll be singing I Am a Child of God. Then we will hear from Will Sorensen, another tribute song from Bo Lewis, who sang yesterday so beautifully. He will sing again. We'll hear from Officer Colton Buckley, Grayson Jackson, before the chief and the governor, and then the benediction will be given by Aaron Sorensen.
Yeah, Holly, it sounds like a little bit like yesterday's ceremony, although it's got its own flavor. It's got its
Sure.
own. It's
Yeah.
got its own. Let's just hear a little bit more about Sergeant Sorensen.
Sergeant Lee Sorensen served 17 years as a law enforcement officer. 16 of those were with the Garland Police Department. He was recently promoted to sergeant and planned to be sworn into his new role on August 22nd, just 5 days after the shooting. Sergeant Sorensen was awarded the Distinguished Service Award by the Tremonton Fire Department in February of this year for his dedication, support, professionalism, and commitment to excellence in assisting fire and EMS units during incidents. Sergeant Sorensen and his wife received Garland City's Wheelin Award in 2020, which recognizes individuals who have significantly impacted the city. He was 56 years old. He is survived by his wife, Lynette, and their children. Alexandria Bonilla, KSL News Radio.
One of the things that I see looking at his obituary is that his 31st anniversary was the day after he died.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, isn't that so sad?
But it is, as you mentioned, Greg, it is a generation separating him
Yes.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Officer Estrada, who was only 32 years old.
That's right.
Just to set the scene for our listeners who can't see, we are looking at the stage there, the podium inside the Spectrum, and the podium is lined with white flowers. There are white pedestals on either side of the stage there with large white bouquets hanging down. Above the stage is a huge monitor that's showing pictures of Sergeant Sorensen. To the left of that monitor is a United States flag. To the right, a state of Utah flag. And they're still waiting for all the family members to come in.
Yeah, yesterday it seemed from Adam Smalls and other of our correspondents who were there's take that there was a huge law enforcement presence, Holly. In fact, I think Adam said more than half of the people there were law enforcement. I would expect more of that again today.
The same. And they're from all over the country. So we were able yesterday to see officers from Florida and New York and, of course, from our surrounding states that will be there. And again, things have not really started in the Spectrum, but there are some people, and we do have a camera there. We will keep going.
Yeah, one thing I thought was really interesting about both of these officers were the similarities in terms of their commitment and their just growing up in the Logan area, growing up in and working in the Tremont and Garland area. They're
Right.
both very much a part of those communities. And we heard that Sergeant Sorensen and his wife actually got an award from the Tremont and Garland chamber. And both of those officers were I think they wanted their families to be in that area and raise their families in that area. Both of
that's
them
right.
spoke Spanish. And I even though they were a few years apart, it seems like their careers overlapped in so many ways.
Yeah, one of the things about Sergeant Sorensen that you just mentioned is he's a lifelong resident of Garland.
Yeah.
So we will be back after this next break.
When you take your grandkids to Disney, do they know what's in your investment portfolio? Do they even care? They're busy having a great time, and you're busy making memories. At Galileo Wealth Management, we understand the nuts and bolts of retirement planning, our investments, the stock market, taxes, Social Security, Medicare, and more. But think about it. What are you trying to do here? Is your goal to beat the S&P? Or is your goal to make memories with your family? Our goal is to give you the confidence to spend in retirement without the fear of running out of money. Call Todd Kim at Galileo Wealth Management today, 801-516-3227. That's 801-516-3227, or go online to GalileoWealth.com. Let Todd Kim and Galileo Wealth Management help you make memories, not just money.
This message comes from Viking, committed to exploring the world in comfort. Journey through the heart of Europe on an elegant Viking longship with thoughtful service, destination-focused dining, and cultural enrichment on board and on shore. With small ships that bring travelers closer to the destination, there's more time to explore. And every Viking voyage is all-inclusive, with no children and no casinos. Discover more at Viking.com.
This is the story of the one. As a safety manager at a manufacturing plant, he does everything he can to keep his coworkers safe. From finding ways to reduce risks to keeping safety supplies in stock. And for that, he relies on Grainger. Grainger offers a broad range of quality products and next-day delivery, so he can always play it safe. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Comcast Business High Five Hotline. What's the state of your excitement?
I signed my business up for the 5-year price lock guarantee, and I can't stop high-fiving people. High five!
Okay, deep breath. You're in a good place. You signed your business up for 5 years of gig speed internet and advanced security, all on our ultra-reliable network.
Gig speeds and advanced security? I'm so stoked!
Yep, and you get it at a great rate that's locked in for 5 years.
Woo!
The high five is just your body's way of saying, I'm winning.
So this is natural.
High-fiving everyone you see in a state of business savings enthusiasm? Totally natural.
Sweet! Thank you! Thank you! High five, everybody! High five!
The Comcast Business 5-year price lock guarantee is back, but only for a limited time, so sign your business up today.
High five!
Comcast Business, powering possibilities.
Ends 9/21/25 for new customers with qualifying bundle. Current customers may be eligible depending on services and area. Guaranteed rate applies to monthly service charge, excluding taxes and fees. Other restrictions apply.
This Friday, join KSL News Radio and NPS from noon to 3 as the movie show stops by. Then, browse and uncover what makes NPS so great. With 4 locations, NPS takes a new inventory every day. Then, they check all competitors' retail pricing before marking items down 20 to 70% off. You're invited to visit the movie show this Friday from noon to 3. And that's the first step to discovering NPS. Visit npsstore.com to begin your own NPS adventure. npsstore.com. Right now at SNS Roofing, get $1,000 off any roof replacement. Plus, you'll get their incredible 50-year worry-free warranty. Dial pound 250 and then say the keyword SNS Roofing for a free bid.
I'm Andrew Saul, Commissioner of Social Security. I'm here to warn you about telephone scammers pretending to be government employees. Some of these scammers may say threatening things like you will be arrested if you don't make payments or provide personal information. Do not fall for these tricks. These calls are not from us. Real Social Security employees will never threaten you for information or money. If you receive a call like this, hang up. Never give the caller your personal information, like your Social Security number or bank account, or send money in any form, cash, gift cards, wire transfers, or prepaid debit cards. Report the call to our law enforcement arm, the Office of the Inspector General, at oig.ssa.gov. Share this information with your friends and family.
When it comes to vaping, the truth can get clouded. So let's make it clear. Vaping is not safe for youth.
Because vaping can put microscopic particles into your lungs.
And dangerous things like metals into your body.
And nicotine, which can harm a person's brain development through their mid-20s.
With appealing flavors, high nicotine levels, and lots of promotion on social media.
Many kids think vaping is harmless, but it's not.
So talk to your kids about the risks of vaping.
Because when you talk, they hear you.
Learn more at underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
The new Inside Sources.
We are following up with our coverage of our end of watch coverage, I should say, that the funeral of Sergeant Lee Sorensen from the Tremont and Garland Police Department. And often, Holly, when we think about politics and our political leaders, we think of the Attorney General as, and I know this because I ran for the office, as the top law enforcement officer in the state.
Right.
Derek Brown has assumed that mantle recently with tremendous dignity, and he is up in Logan this morning. Attorney General Brown, thank you for joining us this morning.
He was there. So Attorney General Derek Brown went yesterday and attended the funeral yesterday, and he is there right now to join us. Hi, Derek. Thanks for joining us.
Happy to join you. Thank you for having me on.
Can you just set the scene for our listeners? Why is it important for Utah's Attorney General to be there at these funerals?
Well, I mean, we work very closely with law enforcement all around the state. And, I mean, one of the things we do at the Attorney General's office is we have law enforcement that help out and provide resources and coordinate with every law enforcement office in the state. And so if there are issues in any county, we provide resources, we help them out. You know, in some of these smaller counties, when they have homicides, we have a group that can help out with those. And so this is exactly the case. And I mean, Tremont's a smaller area that, I mean, they don't generally have to deal with these kind of tragedies. And so in those, you know, for that reason, we're helping out, and we've been in coordination and contact with the county prosecutor up there. But I'm up in Logan today this is the second funeral that I'm now attending here in Logan, and it's a somber experience, but it's an honor to be here and be part of this event, honoring, someone who, you mentioned, gave that last full measure of devotion to our state.
Derek, you've been the Attorney General now for the better part of a year, and you probably learned to appreciate, because you hadn't been involved with the law enforcement community before, but now it's a huge part of your life. Can you tell our listeners just the camaraderie there, the fraternity, just the way that community works together and thinks and just supports one another?
Well, and yesterday I was at the funeral at USU, and it's really humbling because they rally around each other, and most of us live our lives under this blanket of protection and security, just doing what we do every day, and we forget that there are these thousands of men and women who put their lives on the line every day and provide that security for us. And it's moments like this that make us stop and remember what it is that they do. And it was really humbling to be there yesterday with this group of men and women, and as listening to at one moment the daughter of Officer Estrada, who was talking about her dad. And I'm surrounded with law enforcement officers all around the state who have come there. I mean, this morning coming here to Logan, it was just a steady stream of law enforcement vehicles coming up Sardine Canyon, and you'd see all over the state. I mean, yesterday right next to me were law enforcement officers from Millard County, and so really they have all come together because there is this camaraderie and this sense of support, because what Officer Estrada and Sergeant Sorensen died doing is something that these men and women do routinely, hundreds of times a day all across the state.
Yeah, thank you for that. What do you anticipate for today's service? Do you feel like it will be similar, different?
There will be similarities. I mean, you're going to have a lot of, again, law enforcement from all over the state coming around, and You'll hear from families. You'll hear from those who served with Sergeant Sorensen, and they'll talk about their experience. And I'll tell you the nice thing about this is it does two things. It provides an opportunity to bring people together and to remember and to celebrate the life that someone lived. And these moments are they're poignant. We had kind of an emotional one last Friday, just kind of coincidentally. My wife and two boys had been asked to sing the national anthem at the Tremont Rodeo. And so before they came out, we found out that Deputy Allred, who had been, who survived the shooting, and his dog Azusa were going to be there as well. And so they brought the two of them out. The crowd stood and, remembered, the sacrifice and honored them. And then my wife and two boys, it was really, really hard and emotional for them to sing the national anthem standing there next to him. But in a community like Tremont, the reality is everybody knows someone who is affected by this kind of an incident. And so today, this is an opportunity to remember that, and to what I love is that it makes me proud of our state, because rather than using this as an opportunity to pull people apart and be angry, what it does is it gives us a chance to come together.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you for those remarks. That was Derek Brown, our Attorney General. And Holly, I would say this: no one works more closely with law enforcement that is not in law enforcement than the Attorney General. I mean, he is with law enforcement every single day, and he sees what they're doing, and he sees the brother and sisterhood that they've got. We've got with us KSL News Radio's Britt Johnson, who's up in Tremont now. Britt, thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Greg and Holly. I am in Garland, technically Garland, right, guys? Okay, I'm in Garland. There's a difference between the two. I'm right here in Garland, and I'm with firefighters from the North Davis Fire District who have come in. They stepped in to be on patrol here while the firefighters that are local can take the time to go and be at the funeral and be part of the procession and just really be there to support their first responder family. And, the firefighters here, they said as soon as we heard the opportunity to come and step in and be here for these other firefighters, it was an honor, and they jumped on the opportunity to be here to just support. They said, whether it's police or fire, it's all a big family, and these first responders understand what it's like to put their lives on the line, in the line of duty, and it's just, they said it's the least they can do to be here for their fellow first responders.
Yeah. Are you going to be there when the procession makes its way back to Tremonton?
Yes, I will be here.
What do you anticipate for, either the length of time that will take and how many vehicles might be involved? Do you know?
I'm actually not sure, but I know that they're shutting part of the road down, so I think it will be relatively lengthy and, could inhibit some traffic and things like that. But the community seems prepared for that. They know that it's happening, and I think most people are planning on joining in, at least a lot of the locals. And so I think, I would guess maybe an hour that it would take to get everybody through and get over to the cemetery.
Britt, I hadn't really thought about the fact that the first responders, firefighters, law enforcement from the Tremont and Garland area would want to go to Logan and participate in the funeral. And so other agencies are stepping up and filling in for them while they're gone. I mean, it's something I hadn't even considered, but how brave of these and thoughtful of these people. You say it's from North Davis Fire District?
Yes, all three of the firefighters that I've spoken to right now are North Davis Fire District and came up from, Weber County where they live and different places. Sorry, there's a truck driving by right now as I speak. But, yeah, they said once they got the call and once they put the word out, hey, we need firefighters to come up and cover, they wanted to be a part of it and help out their brothers.
Yeah, that's really remarkable. Thank you for joining us, Britt. Greg, right now I am seeing some footage of the hearse carrying Sergeant Sorensen's body. It just arrived at the Spectrum. It's got, of course, as you might imagine, a very large police escort. I can see firefighters and police officers standing at attention as they pull into the parking area. And we will continue to follow this, but the hearse carrying Sergeant Sorensen's body has just arrived at the Spectrum in Logan.
And we're looking inside the Spectrum as well. At the same time, they're clearly getting ready for that coffin and ready for the ceremony. They've got the podium set up there. It looks like a lot of people are milling in. You see the law enforcement community there with their hats and their dress uniforms and whatnot. It was really very considerate of the Utah State administration to donate that huge facility for such an important event, and I guess the greater Logan community just standing up and helping these officers.
Yeah. We'll continue our coverage when we come back after the break.
9:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Amanda Dixon. KSL's top story. Thousands of people will gather in Logan to honor Tremont and Garland Sergeant Lee Sorensen, murdered in the line of duty. Deputy Chief Tyler Ziegler from Ogden says while this stirs painful memories of their own fallen officers, they're here to stand beside Tremont and Garland.
This is something that's typical every time something like this happens. Everybody just wants to reach out and help. We want to be here and supporting our brothers in law enforcement on this solemn day.
The funeral begins at 10 inside the Spectrum with a burial procession back to Tremont, and we'll be here with live coverage every step of the way. Logan City Police say there will be traffic delays during the procession after Sergeant Sorensen's funeral. KSL News Radio's Verl Johansson has more.
The procession will start around noon, going from the Spectrum at Utah State to 1000 North, then to 1000 West, before taking SR 30 to the Tremont and Garland area. Officials estimate it will take about 2 hours for the procession to make it to SR 30, with no traffic being allowed to cross through it. Police encourage people who need to travel through Logan either to leave before the procession starts, take a different route, or plan for delays.
UDOT will be adjusting traffic lights on the affected streets and on Logan Main Street to help move traffic through the area. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says the CDC is corrupt and needs fixing. Here is ABC's Nicole D'Antonio.
Kennedy will testify before a Senate committee next week. In the meantime, his top deputy, Jim O'Neill, will run the CDC. O'Neill says he supports vaccines, but not vaccine mandates.
His fight to change vaccine policy has led to the ousting of Director Susan Menares, who was sworn in just last month. Your money at this moment, the Dow is down 199 right now. That's 0.4%. We're at 45,439. Coming up, it's warming up and the sun's coming back out. KSL weather is next. KSL News Time, 9:32. A reminder about the simplest way to get updated for your day.
Hit your KSL preset when you jump in the car, and we'll take care of the rest.
Hear key news updates and traffic reports.
Andy and Amanda from 5 to 9 in your car.
KSL News Radio at 102.7 FM.
I'm Christian Staples with Arctic Spas. Our Labor Day clearance sale is here through September 6th. Clearance savings on hot tubs, swim spas, all-weather pools, cold tubs, and saunas. Here's the scoop. One of the most coveted options for the Arctic Spa is called Smart Top, the easiest cover to open and close. So easy, you can do it with just 2 fingers, no joke. The Smart Top is normally $4,000, but you get it for free. You get the only spa built for Utah's harsh climate, a hybrid heating system that will cut your electric bill in half, automatic natural salt water, automatic pH control, remote control from your smartphone, the longest warranty, a free Smart Top Easy Open hardcover, and a clearance sale to save you money. For hot tubs, swim spas, all-weather pools, cold tubs, and saunas, check out Arctic Spas now through September 6th. Visit ArcticSpasUtah.com or one of our 3 Arctic Spa stores covering all of Utah in Salt Lake, American Fork, and St. George. Arctic Spa, the only spa built for Utah's harsh climate, and now on sale too.
Switching to Progressive is a game-winning call. And that reminds us of other game-winning calls in the history of sports.
It was a doubleheader in August and really hot inside the concession stand. So instead of waiting for people to come to me, I figured I'd walk around yelling, "Hot dogs here!" And that's how I became the first hot dog vendor in sports.
Okay, not really a game-winning call, but it was a good call. You can make one too. Switch to Progressive and you could save hundreds. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, not available in all states.
I'm Ed Evans, CEO of Consumer Cellular. We're dedicated to serving people 50 and up like me. Our needs are different. Big Wireless wants us in an unlimited plan, but if you're not using all that data, you're probably getting used. At Consumer Cellular, we're focused on affordable, reliable plans, including data that suits your needs, not ours. Our plans start at just $20, and you'll get the best customer service in the business.
Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com/facts. Plans include $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing. See site for additional facts.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Mountain America's My Style checking account. And here's Heather Kelly.
Well, it looks like almost all the crashes and disabled vehicles have cleared from the major roadways across the Wasatch Front. I-15 is mostly at freeway speeds. I am seeing just a few brake lights showing up right now. Northbound I-15 in between 33rd South and the I-80 East turnoff into Sugar House. There is still one emergency vehicle on Mountain View Corridor northbound in Harriman. That was from an earlier crash near Rosecrest, but everybody else looks pretty good right now. Celebrate culture at the 5th Annual Afro-Utah Festival, Saturday, September 6th, noon to 9 at Liberty Square. Enjoy live Afro music, fashion, food, art, and more. Free admission. Visit afroutah.org. Heather Kelly in the KSL Traffic Center.
Today will be partly cloudy with a slight chance of a shower. The high's around 82. Tomorrow, sunnier and warmer, up to 85. Right now, it's 68 degrees. I'm Amanda Dixon from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
The all-new Inside Sources. Your inside access to the people and policies shaping Utah's future. Here are Greg Skordas and Holly Richardson on KSL News Radio.
We're following up on our line of duty coverage from the Spectrum in Logan, where the funeral for Sergeant Lee Daniels Sorensen from the Tremont and Garland Police Department is about to begin in about 30 minutes. We've got a pretty good staff there from KSL TV and KSL Radio who have been there for quite a while this morning as people are starting to walk in. I think, Holly, you mentioned that the hearse was there. The procession of law enforcement is there, and we're seeing photographs from both inside and outside the Spectrum.
Yeah, we have with us KSL TV's Andrew Adams, who's been talking to officers and people arriving. Hi, Andrew. Thanks for joining us.
Appreciate it.
Can you describe what you're seeing but also what people are saying to you as you talk to them?
Absolutely. And obviously there's an extra level of reverence with this and you certainly felt that even like an hour and a half ahead of time inside the Spectrum here. And I think there's a lot of appreciation, a lot of law enforcement here today, obviously, and a lot of appreciation for the sacrifice that has been made in this case. I just barely spoke to officers actually from Colorado as well as New York. And the officer from New York had never been to the state of Utah before, but really kind of speaks to the level of brotherhood that exists in the law enforcement community. When there is a fallen officer, they will travel from around the country.
Andrew, have you seen it? Are there a lot of law enforcement officers there? It seemed like yesterday, I think Adam Small said something like 80-90% of the congregation was law enforcement. Are you seeing a tremendous presence of law enforcement today as well?
Well, I'd certainly believe that. You know, it is open to the general public, and there will be people from the general public here. But my goodness, like just on the east side of the building, it's like an endless sea of motorcycles, police motorcycles from all jurisdictions, all sorts of jurisdictions there. And certainly when something like this happens, they come from all over. Even yesterday we're reporting like Dallas, New York, Chicago. I saw just little small cities in Wyoming show up for this, like Kemmerer and Cokeville, and it really is touching to see just the level of connection. Understanding that a lot of these people have never met these officers before, but yet they feel a common bond through law enforcement.
Yeah, have you been able to talk to anybody who is not law enforcement about why they chose to come to the funeral?
Not this morning. I know a couple of people I talked to yesterday. They were actually working at Utah State, but they wanted to come out and watch the procession. They said, "Hey, we're watching the coverage," and just wanted to come out and just be a part of it. And that was really touching to watch as well. Just the absolute reverence as that procession was driving up 1,000 North here. I mean, other than I described it as a gentle whir of the motorcycles that were leading that procession. I mean, you could almost hear a pin drop. And I think everybody just had to stand still and take it in for a minute as that was going by.
Andrew, we had a very emotional, very touching ceremony yesterday. I expect we're going to see much of the same today, aren't we?
Absolutely will. Just looking through the program here, it looks, if I counted right, I believe there will be 7 speakers. Once again, we'll hear from Governor Spencer Cox, Chief Dustin Cordova from Tremont and Garland Police Department, and a handful of other speakers. And it really it was a touching tribute yesterday, and I would expect more of the same. I mean, just in the days leading up to this and in our coverage since this happened, I've heard so many stories about Sergeant Lee Sorensen and what a awesome guy he was, and what really a fixture he was in that community. And it seemed like everybody had a story about him. So more of that today.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. That was KSL TV's Andrew Adams, who's live in Logan. I'm watching outside cameras, and we do have cameras inside as well. And there are a lot of vehicles that have been going into the parking area. just like yesterday, there are 2 fire trucks with their ladders extended with a giant United States flag hanging down between them as you enter the parking lot. And we saw a few minutes ago the hearse enter. There's a lot of police vehicles that accompanied that into the parking area. And then inside, we're seeing just a few more seats fill in with, of course, the seats left for the family. They are still open and available.
Yes, and we're learning more and more about Sergeant Sorensen. He has worked at that department, Tremont and Garland area, for 16 years, basically his entire career. I think he's been an officer for 17 years, and he's from that area. He's very familiar with the area. He and his wife married and lived in that area, have been a very active part of the community. So I can see the community on the other side of the hill, the Tremont and Garland area, but the people on the other side of the hill, in Cache County, are equally supported, because both of these officers, yesterday's and today's, have also had experience and part of their careers in the Logan, Cache County area.
Could you do us a favor, Greg, and describe Tremont and Garland? What are the sizes of those towns? Are they similar?
Yeah, they're pretty similar. We've always thought of Tremont as being the bigger city there, but Garland is just to the north of it. I think the viewing was at Bear River High School. I've always thought of Bear River High School as being in Garland, but they said it was in Tremont. But it's either on the border there. But if you're going north through Brigham City, you can make an election to stay on the highway and go more westerly. Then you go into the Tremont and Garland area. You go east, you go into the Logan area. Both of those cities are about the same part north of Brigham City, but they're separated by a canyon there. I've ridden that area a lot on my bicycle. It's a beautiful road, and the procession from Logan, from the Spectrum this afternoon over to Tremont and Garland area I think Sergeant Sorensen's going to be buried at the Garland Cemetery. So they're going to take Highway 30, which is a beautiful northerly route that's not used very much, because there's not a lot of traffic that moves in that area. That's why we use it for our bicycle races, because it's such a beautiful highway that doesn't have a lot of traffic. I would expect that the procession through that area will be comfortable, will be beautiful, and the scenery will be incredible. It's probably a good hour drive on a good day, and so to get from Logan to Tremont and Garland, you don't go south to Brigham City. You can go the northerly route, which a lot of people don't travel, but it's a really beautiful part of the country.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. While you were talking, I did look up population estimates. So Tremonton is the big city with 12,000 residents, and Garland has just under 3,000.
Okay, yes. Well, Tremonton is the bigger city there. It's interesting because it hasn't always been a combined police department. It's good that they've done it now, because that community, there's almost no separation. If you're up there, you don't. It's like we were talking to who was it? Britt Johnson earlier. She goes, I don't know if I'm in Tremont or Garland. Well, you hit a golf club and you can go from one to the other. They're right there on that highway between the two.
Yeah, we have in studio with us Amanda Dixon. She's the host of Utah's Morning Show. And Amanda, thanks for joining us today.
It's wonderful to observe this and to listen to your interviews. When you were talking with the Attorney General a moment ago, and you brought up about the camaraderie, Greg, that law enforcement has, and that he, as the state's chief law enforcement officer, has. And I kept thinking, wouldn't it be something if all professions, if all places of business had that kind of, we're there for you. We have your back. I know there is a unique camaraderie that is developed among people who are in the trenches, who risk their lives.
Yeah.
So for members of the military and for law enforcement, it is unique. But for all of us, if we could learn from their example of being there for each other and letting our coworkers know, if you're in need, you can depend on us.
Yeah. Isn't that great? Yeah.
I've sort of been on the sidelines to that, too. I've been involved with officer-involved critical incidents, call them OICIs. When an officer is involved in a shooting, we'll get called out representing the various police unions here. And although we're sort of tangential to that, boy, when you get to a scene, even when an officer has been involved as the shooter, as the person who used force, let alone a situation where the officers had force used against them, officers back each other up. They talk, they want to support one another, even when they're investigating one another, even when they're looking at boy, what happened here? Logan's going to be investigating whether Tremont had did something right, or South Salt Lake's will be looking at whether West Valley did something right, and they're objective, but they're also have been in that other person's shoes at times. You know what I mean? So it's I love working with the law enforcement community.
I noticed just a moment ago the Honor Guard practicing their precision routine that they'll be performing here, I'm sure, in about 15 minutes, where the crispness of their gestures, the white gloves, the sharp white hats. We'll see that again, I'm sure, when the ceremony begins.
Absolutely.
Yeah. You know, Amanda, you mentioned the camaraderie among law enforcement, and I'm also struck by the really wrapping around of the families of the officers. So we've been able to talk to on our show some of the law enforcement widows from, relatively recently, all the way back to 12 years ago. We talked with Shantae Johnson, whose husband was killed 12 years ago on September 1st, also in a shooting. And, she was emotional as she described what it was like. She remembers, of course, that kind of stunned disbelief, because you kind of know, she said, but when it did happen, she said just the community just wrapped their arms around her, and she was there to do that for members of the Tremont community as well.
You asked her yesterday, what is it like to stand and look at thousands of people there in an arena to honor your husband? And she described that so thoughtfully, I thought, and beautifully. And you are, of course, stunned at that moment.
That's right.
And that Sunday night when she heard the news about the shooting, the first thing she did was she got in her car and drove north.
That's right.
She drove north. We have KSL News Radio's Heather Peterson in Logan joining us. Heather, thank you for joining us this morning.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And tell our listeners where you are and what you're observing right now.
So I'm just outside the Spectrum as people are filing in. The streets around here are all lined with American flags and blue ribbons, and I've seen several packs of motorcades drive by with agencies from all over the state and even outside the state. So it's really kind of a moving scene here, just seeing all the different agencies coming together, filing in as they're getting ready for the funeral.
Heather, are you also seeing members of the community come in?
Yeah, they actually have special parking on the other side of campus, and so they're busing people in from that side. So we're seeing buses full of people unload in front of the Spectrum about every minute or two. So if you hear buses in the background, that's what's going on.
Yeah, and I take it you're going to go into the Spectrum for the ceremony?
Yeah, it starts at 10, so about 20 minutes from now.
Yeah. What else can you tell us? Have you had a chance to talk to anybody who's been going in?
Just a little bit. I'm trying to respect people's just privacy and, people coming together with their own friends and family in this moment. But yeah, from what I've heard, people are, sad for the occasion, but happy to be together, kind of grieving together and really celebrating the life of Sergeant Lee Sorensen today.
Heather, it seems like the people from Logan and the university itself have been very supportive of this. I mean, they're using the Spectrum, one of the largest facilities in the northern part of the state. I mean, it seems to me, and maybe you can comment on this, that the community, even though the officers are from the neighboring county, has really stood up to the plate here and gotten involved in this whole thing.
Oh, absolutely. And, even as you enter Logan, there's signs that, tell people to expect delays or plan for funeral motorcades and stuff like that. So, the whole, it's a big effort from USU, from the city of Logan, UHP, a lot of the surrounding agencies and cities to really come together and make this large event happen, because it's not just for the community of Tremont or Box Elder County or Logan. It's for the whole state to really mourn and process this death, because something like this doesn't happen very often, as we've been talking about. So, it's definitely special to see the large-scale effort that agencies throughout the state have thrown together to make this happen.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. That was KSL News Radio's Heather Peterson, who's there in Logan. We're seeing some pictures now of Sergeant Sorensen, and just flashing on the screen from inside the Spectrum, lots of pictures of his family. There was a picture of him sitting on Santa's lap. There's a picture of him with his wife. it looks like as they were dating and then getting married, which again, their 31st anniversary was the day after he was killed. But just seeing some of those pictures, right, that seem to be an important part of funerals.
Yeah. Yesterday, I want to play something after the funeral ceremony of Eric Estrada and after his burial. There was what we call an end of watch call. And I'll get emotional talking about it, but dispatch calls the officer and thanks them for their service one last time. And here's how that call went yesterday. We will have another one today for Sergeant Sorensen.
The final 1042 for Tango 22. Officer Eric Estrada, you gave unselfishly and dedicated your life in service to ensure those around you were cared for. Your everlasting commitment to serve and protect your fellow man will never be replaced. Our hearts are broken, but your legacy will live on forever. Brittany, Lucas, Deanna, you are the light of Eric's life. Eric, you will be remembered for your laughter and always making others smile. You may be gone, Eric, but you will never be forgotten. Thank you for your service. Officer Eric Estrada, we salute you. Godspeed.
Those calls are really hard.
Yeah, I shouldn't have done that.
No, it's a beautiful thing to hear the respect and the love, and that tradition of the last service call is a beautiful tradition. I'm grateful that they let us hear it.
We'll hear another one today. Speaking of Sergeant Sorensen, KSL was able to speak with his niece, Madison Peterson, earlier.
Lee was an amazing person on and off the police force. Even though everybody else would whine and gripe, he would do it too, but he was there laughing. He was always the funny one that would crack the jokes.
She said that he just loved his job, even though it was tough.
I'm sure there's times that none of us know about the circumstances that he was put in that he didn't want to share, but he still chose every day to get up and serve his community.
And what an example he was for all of us.
He was a person that loved to serve. And I hope that us as a family can continue to do that in his honor.
Yeah, we have KSL News Radio's Eric Cabrera inside the Spectrum right now. Thanks for joining us again, Eric. Okay, we soon will have Eric inside the Spectrum.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead, Eric. What are you seeing now as people are starting to mill into the Spectrum, we take it?
Yeah, absolutely. So the seats are definitely filling more now. There's a lot more people than there were even just about 15 minutes ago. As people have walked in, they grab their programs. They're met with blue ribbons. They're putting them on their chests and taking their seats. And it's just once again, and like we've been saying all show, right? It's a beautiful scene of a community and coming together to celebrate the life of Sergeant Sorensen.
Have you seen the family, any indication yet of the family coming in?
I haven't yet, but, I want to say there's family on the floor. But I'm assuming you're talking about the people who are going to take the stage. I haven't seen them approach just yet.
Yeah, and I would assume since we're about 10 minutes out that's probably going to occur as we get there. But we were seeing some video, Eric, of just a tremendous procession of police cars with their lights all going at the same time. I mean, it looked like it went on for it's hard to say, probably a
forever.
mile. Yeah,
it looked like hundreds of cars.
Yes. No, it really does. It does feel that way. I see people in all different color uniforms, different patches, right, on their shoulders. So it really does look like there's pretty much someone or some group from every single authority across the state and even out of state as well is what we've been seeing.
Yeah, thank you for that information. Have you had a chance to talk to anybody since you've been inside?
While I've been inside, I've been able to speak with some officers, some people, who we've worked with in the past, and just, telling them how beautiful it's been. And, I was talking to Cam Roden, with UHP, who we speak to all the time. And I really loved what he said, which was, it's sad to come together in this, but it really takes a group effort. And he's, super pleased to see how, things have obviously come together properly and run smoothly, and everyone kind of lending a helping hand, right? Like we mentioned earlier, other departments coming in and taking over for them so they could all be here and grieve together. It's really just a beautiful thing to see.
The mood has to be really something there in the facility itself, in the Spectrum. Can you describe just what people are doing? I'm sure they're greeting one another and talking to each other, but this is not the kind of greeting that they normally have.
Right, right. Yeah, it's definitely, as many people as there are in here, it's pretty quiet, right? It seems like people are, feeling kind of that reverence in the air. People are definitely just kind of sitting and waiting, right, to see people speak but what's also cool is to see the pictures, right, that are rolling on the screens right now, to see who Sergeant Sorensen really was outside the uniform. Pretty much most of the pictures I'm seeing on the screens right now as we talk are him with his family, or him on vacations, or them on trips together, him with his children. It's really something.
I noticed as the hearse was pulling into the facility earlier that all of the members of law enforcement, all of the first responders were saluting as it drove by. And then the other thing I noticed was that there were members of different law enforcement agencies hugging in a beautiful embrace. I don't know if these men and women knew each other previously or if they were meeting on this occasion, but it felt very, you could feel the warmth and embrace of those people.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was happening too as the hearse rolled in, right? And seeing the people who were already approaching, right? Seeing this motorcade come in, they all stopped. They all stood there and gave respect. Some put their hands over their hearts. That's what's happening right now here inside.
Thanks for joining us, Eric. This has also taken on some, as we've heard from a lot of our people here, a national interest. It's been broadcast from a lot of perspectives nationally. There are law enforcement officers there nationally, and a wreath will be placed in Arlington National Cemetery in the next few weeks to honor fallen officers Erik Estrada and Sergeant Lee Sorensen. KSL TV's Debbie Worthen says Senator John Curtis put in that request.
At the request of Mayor Holmgren, Senator Curtis's office is arranging for a wreath to be placed at Arlington National Cemetery in honor of Tremont and Garland Police Department Officer Erik Estrada and Sergeant Lee Sorensen. Senator Curtis feels this loss deeply and is grateful for all who are supporting the officers' families and the Tremont and Garland community during this difficult time.
So we know we're just minutes away from the scheduled start time of the funeral. And right now on the screen, we're just seeing a picture of Sergeant Sorensen and a background of the United States flag and his hat, I guess, his cap.
Yeah, what? Something that strikes me about both of these officers yesterday and today was their youth. I mean, Sorensen, although he's the senior of the two, was only 57 years old.
56, I think. Yeah.
And Estrada was like 31 or
32.
Sergeant Sorensen was born in 1968.
Yeah, I mean, these and their families. You look at these pictures. Eric was just talking about the pictures that were scrolling across. We were looking at those as well. Both of these men seem to be focused on family as much as anything in their lives, and the whole theme of the procession yesterday was about family, and I'm sure we're going to see more of that today. These are men that have loving spouses and supporting families and supporting extended families.
Yeah. We see that the audience is rising in the spectrum right now.
Can we hear what's happening there?
Yeah,
officers, attention. Present arms.
So inside the spectrum right now, they're beginning the honor guard and bagpipe procession.
flag-draped casket is now entering the spectrum behind the bagpipers, with pallbearers on both sides, 4 on each side, the family walking behind.
That pipe and drum ceremony got to me yesterday, and it got to me today before they even started, because you knew exactly what we were about to hear. Just beautiful, and what a guard that is. They look like they're about 15 or 20 members of that bagpipe and drum group.
The family now walking behind the casket toward the empty first 3 rows of the facility, which they will fill now. Members of law enforcement standing at salute. Others there with their hands over their hearts as the family walks in. On the program, it says, in loving memory, Sergeant Lee Sorensen, there is no higher honor than human service. To work for the common good is the greatest deed.
We've learned from some of the information about Sergeant Sorensen just what an impact he had on the youth in the Tremont and Garland area. He loved teaching young people to make good choices.
Order. Arms.
This is the funeral service for Sergeant Lee Sorensen on KSL News Radio.
Please remain standing for the national anthem performed by singer and songwriter Cole Hartley. Officers, present arms.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Order. Arms. Audience, please remain standing for the invocation. Uniformed personnel, please remove your covers.
The invocation is being given by Colton Peterson.
Our dear Heavenly Father, We're grateful that we're able to gather here and celebrate the life of Lee. Heavenly Father, we're so grateful for Lee in our lives and the jokes and the laughs that we all enjoyed with him. Heavenly Father, we pray as we go throughout this service that we can always remember Lee and for who he was. And we're so grateful for him and the service that he gave to all of us in the community. Heavenly Father, we ask a special blessing upon Lynette, Lacey, and Landon. We pray that they may be able to feel Lee's love and that we can always feel of our Savior's love, that we know that we'll see Lee again and that we can always rely on Thee through this hard time and those that come. And we pray for Thy Spirit to be here today, and we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
The audience will please be seated.
We're hearing now from Matt Clough.
Thank you all for attending today's services as we remember the life and career of Sergeant Lee Sorensen. I am Chaplain Matthew Clough. Lynette, Lee's wife, has asked that I conduct this service. We would like to thank Cole Hartley for singing our national anthem and Cole Peterson, Lee's nephew, for offering the invocation. Presiding over this service is Elder Todd B. Smith of the 70 of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. On the stand with Elder Smith is Bishop Gary Davis, Lee's bishop. We would like to recognize Governor Spencer Cox and Lieutenant Governor Deidre Henderson of the state of Utah. Also in attendance is U.S. Representative Moore from Utah. Additionally, state and local legislatures are in attendance from around the entire state of Utah. We recognize various ecclesiastical leaders who are also in attendance. Today, while we celebrate the life of Sergeant Lee Sorensen, we will be pleased to hear from Kurt Larson, a family friend, who will share a spiritual message with us. Following Kurt's thoughts, Lee's eulogy will be given by Lieutenant Skylar Gailey of the Tremont Garland Police Department. Lee's cousins, nieces, and nephews will then sing, "I Am a Child of God." They will be accompanied by Mike and Harding, and the chorister will be Madison Peterson. Will Sorensen, Lee's brother, will then share with us his memories of Lee. Following Will's thoughts, we will hear a musical number, a tribute to by Bo Lewis. We will proceed to that point in the program.
Lynette, Lacey, Landon. Thank you for this opportunity to pay tribute to my friend Lee. My grandmother once told me, nothing that can be said at a funeral will change the life of the person that has lived. In this case, I hope I can do justice to the life that Lee lived. When the uniform was hung in the closet, the belt and the badge were put away, there was a husband, a father, a son, a friend, and in this case, a best friend. I would like to share a few experiences with Lee that helped define the person he was. I first met Lee probably 20 years ago, and for the last 10 years, we have worked together. First full-time, while he was a part-time officer with the Garland Police Department, and then part-time with me when he became a full-time officer with the Tremont and Garland Combined Police Department. I was called as a bishop about the time that Lee became a full-time officer. Our time working together was often spent asking each other for advice on dealing with matters the other one was dealing with. Lee always had the better advice. He was a fountain of knowledge. He knew the law. And if he didn't know the answer, he would find it, and then he would share it with me. Lee loved his family. One night, Lee called me late, asking if I could go with him to help retrieve his daughter's car that had been involved in an accident in Salt Lake. He asked if I would hook a trailer behind my truck and go with him. I thought that was strange. Lee had a pickup of his own. Why were we taking mine? But when we got there, Lee said, "Follow me." I said, "Why are we taking your truck and my truck?" And he says, "Because I'm leaving my truck with my daughter." I said, "Lee, what will you drive to work?" He said, "It doesn't matter. I'll find a ride." That's just the type of person Lee was. His sacrifice he willingly gave. On several other occasions, we would be to lunch, and Lee in his other uniform, his fluorescent yellow construction shirt. And if Lee saw a cute girl, he would go up to that cute girl and ask, "Are you single?" I know it kind of sounds creeper, right? But Lee could get away with it. And he'd say, "Because I have a son, and he needs a date." And most of the time, because of Lee's pleasing personality, the girl would consent, and Lee would leave Landon's number with him. If any of you knew Lee, right now he would say, and so I'm going to say it for him, if there's any cute girls out here that want Landon's phone number, his number is 435. Lee loved agriculture. Every June I would get a call from him, and he would ask, "Can you smell that? They started cutting hay today." He would tell me how much he loved the smell of fresh cut hay. Then he would follow up with, "Let's go buy 1,000 acres and I'll farm it for you." I don't know how they assign jobs in heaven, but I hope Lee gets the job of cutting hay. Lee loved his fellow men and had a special gift for making people feel good. Often I was driving truck at night, and Lee was on shift, and we would call each other just to chat and visit. I cherished that relationship we had. Often as we were talking, he would say, "Hold on just a minute," and I could hear the window roll down. And the conversation always started with, "Hey, how are you?" I got to eavesdrop on those conversations. He would then ask something specific about that person. Lee seemed to know everybody. He would make a funny comment, get a laugh, and drive on. Once during a time when there was a lot of disdain in this country for police officers, directed toward police officers, I asked Lee what he would do when confronted in that situation. And he said, I'd talk to them. Given the chance, I think Lee could talk and de-escalate any situation. He had that gift. Lee also knew where to turn for peace and direction in life. It wasn't very often when Lee would share his feelings on Jesus Christ. But when he did, it was sincere and powerful. At one point, I was dealing with some pretty tough stuff in my life. Lee was perceptive and a true friend. He was worried about me. He personally called a guy he knew through the peer support team and got me somebody to talk to. But then he did something that I will never forget. He said, "You need a priesthood blessing." Well, I'm probably not the best one to give it to you. I'm willing and I'm offering. And then he shared his beliefs and his testimony in Jesus Christ. He talked about the atonement of Jesus Christ. The atonement isn't just to wash away our sins, but also to help us overcome sorrow, to right the wrongs we have received. In the book of John we read, "My peace I leave unto you, my peace I give unto you." This is a promise from Jesus Christ. It is a spiritual peace that transcends the anxieties and troubles of this world. We are trying to make sense of a terrible loss and a terrible night. I know I second-guess myself and wish I could spend the last times we had together longer and differently. But we don't need to understand. Christ is the only one who can heal us and bring us peace, and we will heal. This peace doesn't come in a big moment. It happens during the small, quiet moments, usually when chaos is happening all around us. It is in the moments we take Christ's name upon us and act as he would. That was Lee. I once had a homeless individual who ended up seeking me out as a bishop. Not really sure of what programs were available in our area, I reached out to Lee for advice. He told me that they usually try to help them get down to the homeless shelter in Ogden, where they have the resources to keep them safe and warm. He told me of a cold winter's night when he was on patrol, and he came across a person living in their car, homeless and out of gas. Lee helped them get some gas in their car to get to the homeless shelter. I asked Lee, "Is there a budget in your department for that?" Lee replied, "No, I just paid for it myself." He didn't do it for publicity or recognition. He did it because it was the right thing to do, and he was acting as Christ would. It hasn't been talked about a lot, but Lee also worked for the state medical examiner's office covering all of Box Elder County. He had to recover bodies from many tragic events, ranging from heart attacks, accidents, and suicides. After a particularly tragic case, I asked Lee, "How do you do it?" You can't unsee those kind of things. His response was profound and tells a lot about the person Lee was. His response, "I regard it as a sacred responsibility to treat those remains with respect and bring closure to the family and loved ones of the deceased." Lee understood the sacredness of the human body and had a firm belief in the resurrection of Jesus Christ, when our body will rise from the grave and be reunited with our Heavenly Spirit. To the officers on scene that terrible night, to the hospital staff, and to Lee's friends at the state medical examiner's office, I extend a heartfelt thank you for treating Lee with love, respect, and dignity. Thank you. In the book of Alma, we are taught, as soon as the spirits of men depart from this world, from their mortal bodies, they are taken home to God. And those who were righteous are received into a state of happiness and rest and peace, where they can rest from all their troubles and sorrow. That is where Lee is now, at peace, free from sorrow. One thing that Lee didn't like, and I'll look for the officers if I get this right, but he didn't like a 1036 check. That means a 1036 check, if I understand it, is a call that goes out from dispatch if they haven't heard from an officer for a while, to make sure that he's all right. Did I say that right? Lee didn't like that. To Lee, if he got 1036 checked, it meant that he hadn't been doing anything. And he didn't want anybody to think that he hadn't been doing anything. So he tried to make sure he had something to show that he was working. He would run a plate, stop a car, do a building security check, or something, just so he wasn't idle. If we could tune a police radio to the right frequency, we would hear, we could ask, Tango 10, 1036 check. And the answer would come back, Angel 10, code 4, very much code 4. Lee lives, and we will meet again, of that I am sure. Until then, I will miss you, my friend. In the name of the Savior, Jesus Christ, amen.
We're now going to hear the eulogy by
First
Lieutenant
off, I'd like
Skylar
to thank
Daly.
the family for the honor to read Sergeant Sorensen's obituary today. The family wrote this, I didn't, and they put the best words to Lee that could be said. There is no higher honor than human service. To work for the common good is the greatest deed. The author is unknown. Sergeant Lee Daniel Sorensen died on August 17th, 2025, in the line of duty defending the lives of the community that he loved and served. Lee Daniel Sorensen was born on October 3rd, 1968, to Leon and Annette Sorensen. He grew up in a large family and was a lifelong resident of Garland, Utah. He was active in his faith, and he earned the honors of Eagle Scout and Order of the Arrow. He graduated from Bear River High School in 1986, where he was active in FFA, rodeo, and the swim team. This past year, he graduated from Utah State University with a bachelor degree of science in agriculture. He served a 2-year mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Venezuela, where he learned to love the people and the culture that surrounded him. While he served in Venezuela, he learned to speak fluent Spanish, which later helped him in his law enforcement, or later helped him as a law enforcement officer. Lee married his high school sweetheart, Lynette Peterson, on August 18th, 1994. Lynette celebrated their 31st anniversary the day after Lee's passing. This isn't in there, but I talked to Lee a couple days before, and he was expressing to me how much he was looking forward to that anniversary. So he loves you, Lynette. They welcomed 3 children during their marriage, Lacey, Landon, and Annalise. Lee loved his family more than anything and encouraged his children and wife in whatever they were doing. He also cherished his nieces, nephews, and looked forward to their visits, whether it was to help with a project or just some playtime. Lee's love for serving in the community and law enforcement began 16 years ago when he became an officer for Garland City. He became an advanced emergency rapid response alert training instructor, and an EMS instructor, which gave him the knowledge and ability to respond to all types of situations and interact with first responders throughout the community of Box Elder County. He enjoyed community policing, especially when he was on his bike, since it gave him the opportunity to stop and interact with citizens wherever he wanted to. The county fair was one of Lee's favorite annual events, which included his most favorite part, the parade. His love of teaching others led him to become an EMS instructor and a field training officer. He had just earned the rank of sergeant and talked every day about how he could help others become better officers. The respect and empathy he felt for the deceased and their families led him to become the medical examiner investigator for Box Elder County. He was able to interact with many agencies over the last 2 years in his capacity, and the service was one of the one of the highlights of his career. Lee also had a large amount of impact on the youth in the Tremont and Garland area. He loved teaching young people how to make good choices and decisions so they could grow into respected members of the community. But his talent was to do it in such a way that was unexpected and resulted in lifelong impacts. One of his favorite events was the Special Olympics torch run. He looked forward to his opportunity each year to interact with the athletes which came through the valley. Lee was larger than life and had the ability to connect with people. It didn't matter where he went. There always seemed to be someone he knew. He is remembered for his quiet acts of service and will continue to be an example of patience and tolerance. Lee always acknowledged the fact that we are all different, but we deserve to be recognized. Lee was preceded in death by his father, Leon Sorensen, his daughter, Elle Annalise Sorensen, and his niece, Amberly Sorensen. He is survived by his wife, Lynette, his daughter, Lacey, his son, Landon, his mother, Annette, and his brothers and sisters, and many nieces and nephews.
We are covering the funeral of Sergeant Lee Sorensen, who died on August 17th. We'll be hearing from his nieces and nephews who will perform a song, and cousins who will perform a song for him.
This is a big group. It looks like about 15 or 20 young people who are going to sing I Am a Child of God, accompanied by Mike and Harding. Our next speaker will be Will Sorensen.
So far in this funeral, we've heard from Kirk Larson. We heard the eulogy by Lieutenant Skylar Gailey. It was written by the family, and a musical number just performed by cousins, nieces, and nephews.
First off, I'd like to thank Brother Larson and Lieutenant Gailey for the comments that they made. You took my talk. I can sit down now. One thing about me is I have alternative things, but you are going to hear some of a repeat for some of the beginning. But what an honor it is to be able to talk at my brother's funeral. Lee Daniel Sorensen. Lee is a husband, a father, a son, a brother, an uncle, a cousin, a nephew, and a list of a whole lot more. But one thing about Lee was he was a friend to all that knew him. I don't have time to tell all of Lee's accomplishments in life, but as you heard his obituary, how much more could you ask for somebody to accomplish the things that he did? One thing about Lee, how many 56-year-olds whose lifelong dream is to get a college education? In 2025, Lee did that. Lee graduated from Utah State with a bachelor's degree in animal science. Lee also fulfilled a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Venezuela, where he learned to speak English and speak it fluently, as we've heard, which helped him in his lifelong dream as being an officer. As we've heard, Lee was married for 31 years, 3 children who he loved very much. In a family with 5 boys, 3 sisters, we learn to love one another and help each other. And sad to say, we even learned how to fight, which is not necessarily something we were proud of. Our dad taught us to watch out for one another, taught us to take and have each other's backs, to stick together and love each other, no matter what. Lee worked hard his entire life. Lee had 2 or 3 jobs at the same time, all the time, always working. Lee started at a young age, 7, 8 years old. His father had an accident on the family farm where him and his brother, Lee was 7 or 8 years old, like I said, him and his brother, job became milking the dairy cows. Any of you milk dairy cows, it sucks. The best thing that ever happened was when we were in high school, they sold them. What a great day. Lee was a peacemaker. Lee was the one in the family that made peace, kept everybody together when we were doing our fighting. In his career as a law enforcement officer, I know that carried over. As we heard earlier, Lee was patient. I've heard stories of Lee's patience and the things that he did. One thing that I've heard is he could de-escalate anybody, and he could get them talked down out of a bad situation. What an incredible trait to have. Why can't more people in this world have that trait? Why can't we love one another? Why can't we be the child of God that our Heavenly Father wants us to be? I want to share a few stories that have been told to me within the last 2 weeks that it represents Lee and what Lee believed and what Lee stood for. I'm going to start with one right off the top that I didn't actually have to write down. There was a time my mother was driving through town. She gets a phone call from her son, Lee, asks her, "You got your seat?" Or asks her, "What are you doing?" She's like, "Going in town. You got your seatbelt on?" "No." "You want to pull over? I'll give you a ticket." But then in the same sense, I've had people, one guy in particular told me that he was pulled over by Lee 3 different times for no seatbelt. He let him off the first 2 times. The third time, he gave him a $100 ticket, he said. But the thing it was, he had his grandkids or kids in there with him, and he took and talked about safety of having your seatbelt on and why you should have your seatbelt on. That was Lee. That was how Lee handled everything. I also want to take and talk about how neighbors, family, that would have a husband or a spouse die. Lee would take time out to go see them, to call them, ask if they needed anything. Lee didn't have to do that. Brother Larson took and told how Lee did the same thing. He cared about everybody. He cared about his community. He cared about his family. Some ladies at some grocery store over home told a story how when they'd get off of a late night shift, Lee would park back where their cars were parked when they were getting off so they could get into their cars to be safe and not have to worry about anything happening to them. One lady said he saved their life multiple times. Don't know what the extent of it is, but that is caring, that is loving, that is Lee. That is what we need to remember Lee. Lee was a true hero. Even on that fateful night, Lee stood for everything that the men in blue stand for. Lee did his job. Lee did what was asked of him. You'll never find a kinder, loving person than Lee. I guarantee it. Lee loved his community. Lee would do anything for the people in Tremont and in Garland. Anything at all. He was there, helping, doing. And yes, he loved that bicycle that he'd ride in the parade. And it was fun to sit there at the parade and hand him candy that the nieces and nephews had picked up, or water, and then he'd take off again with a smile. What true love, what true Christian, what a man of God. Lee loved his job, but he loved his family. Lacey, Landon, Lynette, he loved you very much. But one thing about it, Lee isn't sad. Lee's in a better place. Lee gets to play with Annalise. Meadow, you won't have Lee to play with dolls anymore. He's got Annalise and Amberly to play with, to take care of them until their family can get home. The community came together with charity and love when this incident happened. Let's not lose the fact that two great individuals lost that night and their families. Let's be true heroes and keep the love and the charity going. Charity is the true love of Christ, which we all need to have. I appreciate the opportunity, Lynette, that you gave me to talk about my brother. I love him very much. I love my brothers. I love my sisters. I know we don't tell it to each other very often. But next to my own family, you guys are the greatest. And at this time, we must pull together and help get through this sorrowful time. And I say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
This is a tribute song by Bo Lewis.
once cried, but hope still shines tonight. Two stars now guide us with a steady light. Their courage lives in every street we roam, a legacy that makes this place our home. Shadows fade in daylight, strength is where they stood. Two hearts became our firelight, shining for the good. Hand in hand we'll carry on, together we'll be strong. Their memory reminds us all that hope will lead us on.
On behalf of the Sorensen family, we would like to share our deepest appreciation to those in attendance today. Lynette, Lee's wife, has expressed her gratitude for the outpouring of love that she and her family have felt from the community, both near and far. The Sorensens are grateful to the many officers from around the state of Utah who have showed support through the various acts, which include standing with Lee and filling in for Tremont and Garland Police Department. We would like to offer a special thanks to Chief Chad Reyes with Brigham City and Chief Simmons with Logan City and other surrounding police departments for their efforts to make today's service a special tribute to Lee. Finally, the Sorensen family would like to thank Lee's peers with the Tremont and Garland Police Department, who, even in their time of pain and anguish, have been a constant support to her and her family. Our closing speakers will be as follows. Officer Colton Buckley, who will be followed by Officer Grayson Jackson. Both worked with Lee at the Tremont and Garland Police Department. Following Officer Jackson, we will hear from Chief Dustin Cordova of the Tremont and Garland Police Department. Our concluding speaker today will be Governor Spencer Cox. Upon completion of Governor Cox's remarks, the benediction will be given by Aaron Sorensen, Lee's brother.
We're continuing our live coverage of the funeral of Sergeant Lee Sorensen, and we'll be hearing from one of his co-workers, Officer Colton Buckley.
Morning. So I'm Officer Buckley. I've been in law enforcement for 9 years. The last year and a half has been with the Tremont and Garland Police Department. Lee was my sergeant. I stand with you all today to honor not just a father and a friend, but the best example of what an officer is. Over a year of my time with Tremont and Garland Police has been working with the same crew, which had Lee in it. I want to share my experiences and adventures with and lessons learned from Lee. Lee never liked to be called sir, boss, OIC, officer in charge, sarge, or any kind of title. If you tried, he would correct you and ask you that you just call him Lee. He was one of my training officers, and for the 2 days, we had a rough start. But this laid the foundation for a friendship that continues strong to this very day. At first, me and Lee did not get along, and it's probably because we thought the same but communicated differently. And with both of us being stubborn, and we butted heads. But all this headbutting eventually developed into in a communication style that only the two of us could understand. That's the type of officer Lee was. He shaped his teaching style to each individual person he came in contact with to help them grow, not just in law enforcement, but also in life. Lee cared about each individual person in his life. When he wasn't on scene of a call, he was on the phone, talking with someone, giving them advice, and then helping them. And if you ignored when he called, he would give you grief like no other, because he would always answer your call, no matter the time of day or night. These calls with Lee could last hours, so it was usually best to try and find him and then continue talking in person. The conversation usually started with a message from Lee, setting a U.S. state code or a case to read, and asking your opinion, which would then lead to a conversation exploring each and every possible viewpoint and how each could be defended. When Grayson and Eric joined me and Lee on our crew, we continued this into a group conversation. We would meet in random locations in town and all park and get out of our vehicles and talk. This would eventually develop into what is known to be lunch and learn, where we would meet at midnight at the department for lunch and discuss whatever topic we had come up with for the night. The goal behind this was not to only help us with our law enforcement knowledge, but also to help make sure we had enough training hours for the year, so that our admin would not have to worry about our crew not having enough hours to keep our certifications. Of course, with Lee's caring nature, he wouldn't just talk to you on shift, but he would also call you during the weekend or on our off days. Last year, I went on a bull elk hunt for a few days, and when I got home, within an hour, I had a text from Lee, giving me grief that I had missed my shot. I had not talked to Lee, but somehow he knew that I'd missed my shot. And in that classic fashion, he gave me grief over it and then continued to offer me advice on how to shoot, and that he would take me out to learn how to shoot properly. I should have taken him up on that advice right then, because it wasn't more than a couple months later that I was going to go after a cow elk with my father-in-law, and I continued to miss my shots. About this time last year, Lee was the first person other than my immediate family to know that I was going to be a father. He knew how much it meant for me to become a father and made sure that I could go to every single appointment. He listened to all my fears and worries during the pregnancy and talked me through them. He bolstered me and told me I was going to be a great father, and that he could tell this just from interacting with me. Lee was the first person in our department to meet my little girl. And again, it was just like he knew when I had gotten home because within 45 minutes he was pulling into our driveway with a little gift to welcome us home from the hospital. Lee was always giving something. If it wasn't his time, it was something someone needed, and he never asked for anything in return. Lee subscribed to a law enforcement subscription shield box and collected a tote full of items. When any of us on our crew needed something, because ours had broke or we had an idea of something that we could use in our car, Lee would pull out his tote and then go through it and find something similar or the exact item and give it to us. Lee would do this without asking for payment. When we would offer it, he would only ask that we keep on being the amazing officers because he loved working with us. For the last 8 months, Lee led our crew as officer in charge because we were down a sergeant. All of us on patrol crew, too, immediately started to give him a hard time calling him boss, ghost sarge, and other supervisor nicknames. We did this to mess with Lee because he did not ask to lead our crew, but he led anyways. One evening, when we had rotated to grave shift, Lee had gone inside to get something, and we had all decided as a patrol crew to mess with Lee. One of us got a window marker and went up to his patrol car. We started drawing sergeant stripes and a supervisor title on it. We did this all without Lee knowing. And we finished our briefing and we promptly went our separate ways. I had only gone 3 blocks when a chat came across our computers telling us we were all fired for defacing police property. We all answered that we had no idea what he was talking about and maintained our innocence. As cops, we all know our Fifth Amendment right is to not self-incriminate. Lee told us that he would be out of service for the next little while to rewash his car of our vandalism. So when the opportunity came for Lee to put him for sergeant, our whole crew nominated him because we were afraid that he wouldn't do it himself. But Lee was a smart man, and he figured out what we were doing and put in for it himself. On August 7th, the day of the test, I sent him a good luck text. I wanted him to be my sergeant. I loved working with him and for him. And when the decision was announced that he had accepted, I immediately sent him a congratulatory text. Lee, being a humble person, he tried to convince me that our department email had been hacked and that I was mistaken. Unlike Braden, I could not be fooled and knew that my mentor had achieved a hard-earned and well-deserved position. Lee, I'll see you in a couple hours to continue our discussions and learning at midnight like we always do. Love you, Dad.
That was fellow Tremont and Garland officer Colton Buckley, and we're about to hear from another fellow officer, Grayson Jackson, who is approaching the podium.
I'm Officer Jackson. Today I'm here to honor and remember Sergeant Lee Sorensen, my partner and my friend. Lee was a man who wore many hats, if you've heard many times today. He wore each hat with honor, pride, and compassion. He loved serving our community with the titles of police officer, sergeant, medical examiner, EMT, EMS instructor, peer support member, bike patrol officer, FTO, and alert trainer. Beyond his work serving others, he was also a devoted husband, loving dad, caring brother, proud son, a fun uncle, and a loyal friend. Each of these roles shows the kind of man he was, always willing to step in, to serve, to support, and to love. Lee never just carried a title, he lived it fully with his whole heart. I recently went through fire school. As I was on Lee's crew, I had to come to him and say, hey, I need a couple hours here and there so that I can get this done. He, without hesitation, said, we'll make it work. Lee then sat me down one night after I got out of class and told me the story about when he tried sitting through fire classes. He said after about an hour on the first day, he realized he was already certified as a law enforcement officer and didn't need to sit through this class right now. That was Lee, always quick with a joke, but behind the humor was a lesson. Know who you are, take full pride in it. He was proud to serve the citizens of Tremont and Garland as an officer. One moment that sits with me and always will happened just last month on July 20th. I was having a rough day and Lee could see it. Somehow, always, he found me. He would come and find me wherever I was. It didn't matter. It was like he had a beacon that could send it right to me or Buckley or Eric. He pulls up next to my truck, looked at me, and without me even saying anything, he said, go home, see your wife, hug your baby. It may have been midnight, but he was adamant. That was Lee's way. He understood what mattered most, and he reminded us to never lose sight of it. When my daughter was born a month early, I texted him to say, things didn't go as planned and I won't be into work. We're at Logan Regional. He didn't hesitate. He replied, don't worry about work. A couple hours later, sitting in the hospital room, a nervous nurse walked into the hospital room and said, there's a cop outside for you? I instantly, without hesitation, knew who it was. It was Lee, because that's who he was. Showing up, checking in, making sure the people he cared about were okay in their time of need. Today we grieve as a community, as a family, as friends, and as brothers and sisters in uniform. But I also believe the grief we feel is a message from Lee himself. It's his way of reminding us, hold each other tight, protect the ones around you, and don't forget to laugh. I want everyone to look around at everyone in this room today. We are all here because an amazing man made an impact on us. Lee was more than a protector in uniform, but a man who made sure those around him were cared for, laughed with, and never felt alone. So let's honor him by living like Lee. Let's take care of each other, and because Lee wouldn't want it any other way, make sure to throw in a few good jokes along the way. Thank you, Lee, for your service, your friendship, your wisdom, and your humor. I can't imagine a better individual to protect our loved ones in heaven. Always be honored, always loved, and never forgotten.
We just heard from fellow officer Grayson Jackson, who served with Sergeant Lee Sorensen. Coming up, the next speaker will be his chief, Dustin Cordova.
Thank you for being here. Today we gather with broken hearts to honor Sergeant Lee Sorensen, a husband, a father, a brother in blue, and a friend. Lee was more than just an officer in our department. He was a cornerstone. He was the guy you went to for knowledge, if you needed a good laugh, or you wanted the honest to goodness truth. Because Lee never pulled punches. He'd tell you what he thought. Lee was the voice in a room who spoke up when others stayed quiet, the teacher who made learning fun, and the friend who could make you laugh on your hardest day. Lee embodied the best of what it means to wear this badge. courage, integrity, and compassion. And while we mourn his loss, we also celebrate the incredible life he lived. When I first became chief, I made it a point to sit down with every individual, every officer, everyone that works in the department. And I asked one simple question: what can I do to serve you as chief? Almost every officer gave me the same answer. I don't know, Chief, just let me do my job. The bar was set pretty low. That is, until Lee Sorensen walked into my office. Lee came in with a notepad, a handful of details, because everyone who knows Lee knows he was always prepared. For the next hour, Lee gave me a full list of things that he believed we needed to improve. Honestly, it was harder than getting the job. When he finally finished, 1 hour later, I looked at him and I asked, "Is that it?" Lee turned bright red, shook his head, and let out his signature laugh. He looked me in the eyes and he said, "That's it for now," and he walked out of the office. That was Lee, sharp-witted, thoughtful, always prepared, and never afraid to speak up for those around him. Lee was one of the best teachers I've ever met. No matter the subject, he had a way of pulling people in. His mix of humor, smart comments, and genuine knowledge made every lesson interesting. I remember him hosting a training for our department. He promised prizes for anyone who got the answer correct. The prize turned out to be a close-up photo of Lee's face, autographed, of course. He had the entire classroom laughing. I am happy to report it did backfire on Lee, because another smart-witted officer framed that photo and hung it on the wall. To this day, it still floats around the office, making people laugh. Behind the humor, Lee had a gift. He could teach, he could connect, and he could inspire. He brought people together with laughter, but he left them with wisdom. And that is a rare and powerful combination. Lee never wasted an opportunity to teach. And it is in this spirit that I teach you today. To every law enforcement officer here today, look around. We are family bound by courage, sacrifice, and love for something greater than ourselves. Please don't take that for granted. Lee never did. As an officer, you will consistently deal with people on their worst day. This job can make you feel like the world is bad, that people do not care, and it is us versus them. That is not true. This week, we witnessed thousands of people come together to show us love. Let this remind you that the majority of people love you and honor the work you do. Lee believed this. Remember why you became a cop. Remember the bond you have with your work family. And remember to cherish every moment you have together. Train hard and frequently like Lee did. And never forget, when the darkest hour hits, we are the light in the darkness. We are the protectors who shield the innocent from evil, and we are the ones who run towards the danger like Lee did. Today we mourn our brother. Who gave everything in the service of others. He sacrificed himself to protect an innocent life that night, and he will forever be our hero. His bravery is not just a memory, it is a torch passed to us. When we put on the badge tomorrow, we must carry it with his honor in our hearts. We will hold the line, answer the call, and protect the innocent with renewed strength for Lee, for his family, and for the people he gave everything to protect. That is how we honor him, and that is how his Spirit lives on. Before I close, I just want to say this. In these dark days, we have seen light. The overwhelming support from fellow officers, from citizens, from leaders across our state has carried us through this. To every person who has stood with us, prayed for us, and showed love for Lee and his family, thank you. Your kindness has been a shield. It reminds us while evil can strike, it will never overcome the good that lives in the hearts of so many. We'll miss you, Lee, and we'll always love you. Thank you.
We just heard from Tremont and Garland Chief Dustin Cordova, who spoke yesterday as well. He lost 2 of his officers. He's got to be going through one of the most miserable times of his law enforcement career. Handled himself incredibly well. We're about to hear from our Governor, Spencer Cox, who also spoke yesterday.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to be with you today. Chief Cordova, thank you for those inspired words. My wish is that every citizen of this great country could listen to that message. Lynette and Landon and Lacey, thank you for this opportunity to pay tribute to a hero, to one of the greatest men in our state. My regrets, and I have a few, are that I didn't get a chance to know Lee or Eric before they were taken from us. But in the days that have followed, I've gotten an opportunity to know both of them very well, through their families, their loved ones, through the stories that have been told and shared, many of which you've heard today. On that fateful Sunday evening of August 17th, when those messages came in, I just kept thinking, this can't happen. This doesn't happen. This doesn't happen here. And truly, it rarely happens. As we looked back, the last time we lost 2 officers from a municipality or the state in one fateful shooting like that night was 1914. So more than 100 years, 1924, 101 years since anything like this had happened in our state. And so, as I mentioned yesterday, less than 24 hours later, I found myself in the medical examiner's office. And as I walked in, something was different. See, I'd been to the medical examiner's office before. It's a tough place with very strong people. People who see the worst tragedies every single day. This is their job. This is what they do. And this day, they weren't the stoic people I knew. The tears were flowing, and I couldn't understand why, what was different. This wasn't, sadly, the first time they'd had to deal with tragedy like this. And that's when I learned that Lee was one of them, that he was an investigator for Box Elder County, that these were his colleagues called upon to do the worst possible thing. And then they started telling me stories about Lee and Lynette, both of whom they had worked with, and how much they loved and adored these 2 human beings. And then the family came in, and I got a chance to meet them. And sadly, in my job, I get to be with people on a lot of their worst days. But I had never seen what I saw that day. I found out it was their 31st wedding anniversary. And somehow, through the darkness and the tears, Lynette was comforting everyone else. And I learned a lot about them that day and the couple that they are. You've heard a lot about Lee's career, but nobody's talked about the first part of that career because it was very short. And I'm going to talk about it because when I asked her to tell me about Lee, this is when I knew Lee was my kind of people. Lee actually started with the Highway Patrol, and his first assignment was in Salt Lake City. And it didn't take very long for Lee to say, "Can I get transferred to Box Elder County?" And they said, "Well, we don't really work like that." He said, "Okay." And the next thing everyone knew, he was working in Box Elder County. That's when I knew everything I needed to know about Lee. He needed to be back in Garland, back in Tremont, and back with his people. Now, we talk a lot about serving others. If you listened and paid attention to the list of service that Lee and Lynette give to the people in their county, yes, law enforcement is at the center of that, but there is so much more. Whether it's 4-H, Special Olympics, EMS trainings, their lives have been about service. There's something else unique that has happened in this tragedy, and it's the timing of this tragedy. It happened on Sunday night. That next week is the Box Elder County Fair. Now, for those of you who are not from Box Elder, you can't understand what this week means to the people who live there. Imagine if Christmas lasted 5 days. That's the county fair. Everyone lives for this time. It's a time of celebration, a time of joy, a time when the county comes together. It's like a giant family reunion that just keeps going on and on and on. Multiple nights of the rodeo, a horse parade before the rodeo that everyone comes out to see. The young people who have been growing their animals for the year come together to sell those animals, to raise money for school and other things. And everybody comes to buy those animals. There's nothing like it. Actually, there are some things like it in rural America. But it's really special. And I'm so grateful I've had a chance to be a part of it on a few occasions, including this year as I got to go to the rodeo. As I say that because that time of joy and celebration, that 5-day Christmas turned into something else. There was still some joy and some celebration, but it turned into 5 days of community mourning. Mourning with those who mourn. The love and the tears and the hugs and the sadness. The riderless horses coming into that arena every night, representing those two brave men who gave their lives to serve their community. And then something magical. As all those kids came to sell their cows and their pigs, their sheep, 30 minutes before that, there was a little fundraiser to raise a little money to help these families. Pretty small communities. And the number just kept going up and up and up. Every one of those cows and pigs and sheep got sold that day, and those kids got their money for school. And somehow on top of that, almost $300,000 were raised by this community. And people wonder why. People wonder why Lee wanted to get back to Garland. That's the why. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you that there is nothing in our country that is so broken right now that can't be fixed by Box Elder County. I was speaking with Mayor Holmgren, the mayor of Tremont, and he reminded me that Jesus was referred to as the Good Shepherd. And I know a little bit about sheep herding. My uncle, my cousins raised sheep, and I used to spend my summers on the mountain herding sheep with my cousin. We were 15, and somehow they would leave the two of us alone for a week. No cell phones, herding over 1,000 sheep. And one day, just as his dad left, we were sitting there and getting ready to go out and check on the sheep, and his dad came screaming back down the road, and he said, "There's a bear in the sheep." And I grabbed the 30-06 and followed my uncle as we ran towards those sheep to protect them from that bear. It's as scared as I'd ever been. I thought, this is crazy. Why are we running towards this bear? Is much bigger than us. But we ran anyway because that's what you do. That's what you do. You protect the sheep. As Mayor Holmgren had me thinking about the Good Shepherd, I thought of Lee and Eric running towards that evil. And I thought of the Good Shepherd running to them. I know that they're okay. I know that Lee is doing great. But there's something else about shepherding. It's mostly boring. Sheep are pretty dumb. Sheep make a lot of mistakes. And, I had a friend tell me once that he would take a bullet for me. And I said, I'd take a bullet for you too. And that's stuff we say. And then I became governor, and I realized that literally I have people who wear the badge whose job it is to protect me and my family, to take a bullet for us. And then I realized that that's not just something the governor gets. That's something that every person in Utah gets. I'm in a room full of people who put a badge on every day, a badge that says, "I will take a bullet for you." My friends, my family, complete strangers, people I've never met, people who probably don't deserve it. And you represent the very best of us. But there is something more than that. You see, I will hopefully never be in a situation like that. Most of us never will. And that's the magic of Lee and Lynette. Now, I pray every night that none of you who put on those uniforms will ever have to go through what happened in this terrible place at this terrible time. And I hope our hearts remember that there are other people impacted as well. Deputy Allred and his canine Azula. Sergeant Brager, who was the arresting officer on scene. Everybody in this police department who's been so impacted. There are many, many victims here. Let's not forget them. But more importantly than all of that is this. Lee was not just willing to take a bullet for all of us. Lee was willing to wear out his life in service to all of us. And that's the boring part of shepherding. It's giving back every single day. It's showing up. It's treating others with goodness and kindness and respect. It's helping with the Special Olympics and 4-H. It's volunteering in your local congregation. It's making sure your neighbor is okay. It's not caring whether they're a Republican or a Democrat or whatever. It's that they're a human being. That's what Lee and Lynette have taught me. And so we have this arena filled with people to pay tribute to a hero who died protecting us. But I like to think that if this funeral had happened 40 years from now, when Lee was in his 90s, that it would have looked a lot like this. Because he had given his life in service every single day to making us all better people. Now, I don't know what it's like in heaven, but I know that we've needed some rain. And I know that somebody who got a degree in agriculture knew that we'd been praying for rain for a long time. And I don't know if those are tears that were falling from heaven this week, or if Lee went into his boss up there and made it clear that we needed some help down here. But I'm grateful that Lee is watching over all of us, and especially his family. May God bless us as we keep his memory alive. Thank you.
That was Governor Spencer Cox. He was the last speaker. We will next hear the benediction by Aaron Sorensen, another family.
Our dear kind Heavenly Father, we are thankful for thy plan of happiness. We are thankful for thy Son in that plan. We are thankful for our brother Lee, and the kind person that he has been in life. We wish that thou would bless us all, that we'll be able to follow the plan in this life so we can return and live with thee. We wish that thou would bless us all, that we'll be forgiving to those in our families, in our communities, and those that we come in contact with, to be able to receive the happiness and the joy that can come from following the plan. We wish that thou would bless us, that we will be able to know where heaven meets the earth, and we will strive to be there, to commune with thy Son, and be able to receive the strength we need to in life to endure those challenges in which we have. We pray that we will be able to know what to pray for in the weeks and months to come. That as we pray to know what thou would have us feel and have us say, that we will feel thy Spirit and be able to be comforted to do those things. We say this humbly in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
That ends the funeral service for Sergeant Lee Sorensen of the Tremont and Garland Police Department. I didn't think there was any way that the service could match what we heard yesterday for Eric Estrada, but it was every bit as compelling. And I have to say, Governor Cox rose to the occasion in so many ways. It appears that the color guard is now approaching the podium, and we'll have a brief ceremony by them as well.
Would the audience please rise? Uniformed personnel, please don your covers. Officers, attention. Present arms.
Pipes and drums. Scotland the brave, Rowan Tree, 4/4. By the right. 1, 2.
The pipe and drums are now leading the congregation and others out of the venue. I assume they'll be followed shortly by the casket, and there will no doubt be a line of officers, as we saw yesterday, lining the way there as they start the procession away from the Spectrum and into the parking lot. They're going to take the body to the East Garland Cemetery, which is about 20 miles Holly west of Logan on Highway 30. It'll be a little bit different procession than we saw yesterday, where they drove just a few blocks to the Logan Cemetery for Officer Estrada. Sergeant Sorensen will be laid to rest in Garland. And I assume that his funeral, or the burial part of the ceremony, which has been largely private so far, and I assume will be with Sergeant Sorensen as well, will proceed. I'm sure they're about an hour away from that by the time they transport him to the Garland area.
Yeah, they think they won't even leave the parking lot up there until noon, so we still have at least a half an hour.
Yeah,
We've got pallbearers now going up to the casket.
The pallbearers are family members. His wife's family was Peterson, and his family is Sorensen, and most of the pallbearers have those two names. And the casket is now being taken out of the spectrum and following the course that the bagpipes just took.
And the family members are following along behind that. What a beautiful ceremony that was.
Yeah, and a nice venue, very, very, I mean, look at the flowers and the way that the podium was set up and the honor guard and whatnot. A lot of law enforcement there, quite a community they have.
Before the funeral officially got underway, we were seeing displays of pictures from him, and I believe if you go online and find his obituary, they also have pictures uploaded there. You can see them also.
Like Officer Estrada, he had young children. He had children that were probably still living at home. He'd only been married a short time, less than 20 years, I think.
No, 31.
31 years. That's right, because they had their
31.
31st anniversary.
That's right, the day after.
Right.
But his son's not married, and so his brother was teasing that he was going to give out his number.
That's why I thought that, yeah.
That's right, to help him find a spouse.
Yeah, he'd been a police officer for 16 or 17 years,
right.
but had been married for 31 years. Just graduated from college. Just got his degree from Utah State University in agriculture, I think. And like you, went back to school at a
little bit older age.
And
Yeah,
got his degree.
Yeah,
you know,
he
it's
just
something
did that.
that's sometimes important to people like that. And I assume that played no small part in him being promoted to sergeant. And you know what was interesting was the officers that worked with him after he became sergeant asked if he could be their sergeant.
Yeah.
I mean, they wanted to work with him and they wanted to work for him. I'm sure he was an excellent sergeant.
Well, clearly they had such a camaraderie, right? So there were professional interactions, but there were personal interactions too. So one of his officers.
We ask all Tremont, Garland, and Box Elder County law enforcement agency officers to exit through the tunnel to your left, and you will be directed to form an honorary cordon for Sergeant Lee Sorensen.
That's what we saw yesterday also.
Yeah, huge procession.
We ask all remaining officers to exit the spectrum and move to your vehicles. You are welcome to fall into procession behind the Box Elder County agencies. Graveside services will begin approximately 45 minutes after family arrival. Officers, dismissed.
And just a beautiful ceremony in memory of Sergeant Lee Daniel Sorensen, born October 3rd, 1968, passed away August 17th, 2025, far too early and far too young.
Yeah, so again, back to these stories, hit the people who served with him. It sounded to me like there were three of them, and one of them was Eric Estrada, who died alongside Sergeant Sorensen. But the other two spoke today at his service, Officer Grayson Jackson and Officer Colton Buckley, and they both shared stories, both of humor, but of his personal touch, and especially within their own lives.
Yeah, here's Officer Buckley.
One evening, when we had rotated to grave shift, Lee had gone inside to get something, and we had all decided as a patrol crew to mess with Lee. One of us got a window marker and went up to his patrol car. We started drawing sergeant stripes and a supervisor title on it. We did this all without Lee knowing. And we finished our briefing and we promptly went our separate ways. I had only gone
3 blocks when a chat came across our computers telling us we were all fired for defacing police property.
You gotta have a sense of humor for that.
Right.
Good for him. Good for him.
So we have KSL's Heather Peterson on the line. She was inside the event center, and now she's outside. Heather, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks again for having me.
Tell us what it was like to be in the arena today.
Well, there was just a lot of people gathered who really cared about not just him personally, but just what he stood for. And it was just moving to see people from all over, those who knew him and those who didn't, just come pay their respects. And we heard a lot of moving speeches about who he was, not only as a husband and a father, but as an officer. And he was heavily involved in training others and in EMS, at the medical examiner's office, and on the police force in Tremont. And so just a lot of people coming together to just express that he was someone who served not just with integrity and compassion, but with humor too. So it was interesting to hear more about who he was as a person during the service today.
And what do we expect in the next hour or so? I assume they're going to gather, like they did yesterday for Officer Estrada, and start a procession. This one's going much further, obviously, but are they doing that same line that we saw yesterday?
Yeah, they plan on having a full motorcade with hundreds of officers from the state that are going to escort him and the hearse. They're starting to form that right now outside. He was escorted out of the Spectrum by the pallbearers, a team of bagpipers, and members of the Tremont and Garland Police Department. So now we're just waiting outside for them to file out of the building, and then they'll assemble that motorcade and take him to the cemetery in the Tremont and Garland area.
Thank you, Heather. That was KSL News Radio's Heather Peterson, who was there on site. And we're seeing video feed of the cordon, which is lined up on both sides to the hearse, but those are officers who are from that Tremont and Box Elder area, the local police officers, and then the other ones are getting ready to be part of the motorcade.
Right. You mentioned that one of his fellow officers, Colton Buckley, spoke about a prank that he pulled. We also heard from a fellow officer, Grayson Jackson, who explained a moment when Sergeant Sorensen actually showed up for him at a hospital.
When my daughter was born a month early, I texted him to say things didn't go as planned and I won't be into work. We're at Logan Regional. He didn't hesitate. He replied, "Don't worry about work." A couple hours later, sitting in the hospital room, a nervous nurse walked into the hospital room and said, "There's a cop outside for you?" I instantly, without hesitation, knew who it was. It was Lee, because that's who he was. Showing up, checking in, making sure the people he cared about were okay in their time of need. Today we grieve as a community, as a family, as friends, and as brothers and sisters in uniform. But I also believe the grief we feel is a message from Lee himself. It's his way of reminding us, hold each other tight, protect the ones around you, and don't forget to laugh.
So one of the things that I learned about Sergeant Sorensen was that he was the Box Elder County Medical Examiner, I guess liaison, but he would go for any of the types of deaths where the medical examiner needed to be involved. So it could be heart attack or car accident or something else. And so one of the things I found very touching is that his own colleagues, his friends at the medical examiner's office, had to receive his body.
Yeah, that had to be difficult. So in Utah, the medical examiners have only so much investigative tools that they can use. So they have assigned officers in various parts of the state who are assigned as special investigators for the medical examiner's office. And he was that northern Utah investigator. So anytime there would have been a death or an unattended death or where
Right.
the medical examiner might respond, he would be the one that was there. You know, he was so popular in his department. You heard from several of his officers, but his chief his chief spoke yesterday. I have to say, what an incredible man and what pain he's going through right now. He told the story about how Sergeant Sorensen wasn't afraid to speak his mind.
When I first became chief, I made it a point to sit down with every individual, every officer, everyone that works in the department. And I asked one simple question: what can I do to serve you as chief? Almost every officer gave me the same answer: I don't know, Chief, just let me do my job. The bar was set pretty low. That is, until Lee Sorensen walked into my office. Lee came in with a notepad, a handful of details, because everyone who knows Lee knows he was always prepared. For the next hour, Lee gave me a full list of things that he believed we needed to improve. Honestly, it was harder than getting the job. When he finally finished, 1 hour later, I looked at him and I asked, "Is that it?" Lee turned bright red, shook his head, and let out his signature laugh. He looked me in the eyes and he said, "That's it for now," and he walked out of the office. That was Lee. Sharp-witted, thoughtful, always prepared, and never afraid to speak up for those around him.
Can you imagine giving your boss an hour's worth of feedback?
Yeah.
Your new boss.
Your introduction to the boss.
Yeah.
You know, we don't appreciate. It's so rare when an officer is killed in the line of duty, and in Utah it's been especially rare, but we haven't had a death of more than one officer in one shooting for over 100 years. And Governor Cox spoke about that.
On that fateful Sunday evening of August 17th, when those messages came in, I just kept thinking, this can't happen. This doesn't happen. This doesn't happen here. And truly, it rarely happens. As we looked back, the last time we lost 2 officers from a municipality or the state in one fateful shooting like that night was 1924, 101 years since anything like this had happened in our state.
Yeah, it really is. Gosh, it's just been hard and kind of heavy, you know?
Yeah. We have KSL News Radio's Britt Johnson with us. Britt, thank you for staying with us this morning.
Yeah, Greg and Holly, I'm in Tremonton. I'm just awaiting the processional, and I was able to observe some of the cemetery prep, and as they practice kind of the procedure for the 21-gun salute. But it's a really small cemetery, and so officials have prepared a large farmer's field that can hold up to 1,200 cars. They're not exactly sure how many cars to expect, but they've prepared to divert traffic and to park there. And right now they're getting ready to block off SR 30 and East Garland Road as the funeral wraps up there in Logan and the processional starts to make its way down here.
Wow, thanks for that. So we haven't seen the casket be loaded into the hearse yet, but we know that it should be sometime soon. But Britt, can you share a little bit more about what cemetery prep looks like?
Yeah, so I was only able to make a quick loop because it was only law enforcement allowed in there, and SWAT team in there for security reasons, just to prepare for any and all things. And yeah, officers were lined up prepping. They had their guns and they were prepping kind of the procedure for the 21-gun salute. And so that I think will be really powerful for attendees. But it's such a small area. It's a dirt gravel road getting into the cemetery and just one small loop. And so I think those that are going to be attending in there, it's going to be a little tricky to navigate logistics and how to get in and out. So we'll be paying close attention as, it might get to be pretty backed up, but I think they're doing the best they can.
It looks like the procession is starting to get ready to leave. Britt, do we have an idea? Did they set a time? And I know that things have to be fluid in cases like this for the interment itself.
Yeah, and so they have these roads blocked off from 12 to 2 o'clock. So I'm thinking they're anticipating them coming through maybe within the next 40 minutes-ish, depending on how quickly the cars are able to make it from Logan to here. It's kind of a little bit of a jaunt. But, yeah, it's going to be blocked up for the next several hours.
Yeah, that was Britt Johnson there in Tremonton. Thanks for keeping us informed and updated. We really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's about a 20-mile drive. I'm sure they're not going to be going very fast, and they haven't quite left Logan yet. So it's a pretty route. Highway 30 that runs what would be east to west in this particular instance, from Logan to Garland, Tremont area, through the north part of both Cache and Box Elder counties, from one city to the next. It's not a road that's used by a lot of people unless you're commuting just between those two particular jurisdictions.
Well, we know that it will be blocked off, and so if there are people who are not part of the funeral, you may want to make different travel plans. But right now, we can still see the cordon of police officers lined up, waiting the path basically up to the hearse. It has not moved. We see the big American flag that they will pass under as they start to leave the parking lot. But so far, I'm not seeing movement of the pallbearers getting up towards the hearse.
Yeah, that took a while yesterday. But I wanted to go back. We spoke about Spencer Cox. My word, he was amazing both days, just as touching and as touched as he could be. He did speak about Sergeant Sorensen's family and his dedicated service to others.
We talk a lot about serving others. If you listened and paid attention to the list of service that Lee and Lynette give to the people in their county, yes, law enforcement is at the center of that, but there is so much more. Whether it's 4-H, Special Olympics, EMS trainings, their lives have been about service.
That was Governor Cox speaking at the service. He also shared some stories about again, the medical examiner's office, and walking in and seeing the people in the office just in tears and learning that Sergeant Sorensen was one of their own. We're getting ready, it looks like, to see the motorcycle motorcade. Looks like they're ready to go, but we still haven't seen the casket taken to the hearse yet.
Yeah, we're going to go Derek Brown. He's being interviewed by KSL TV right
remember
now.
what it is that these law enforcement officers do for us every day.
Seems one of the more relatable parts about him as well is just that how many people talked about he was almost like a father figure to him, and that was a really cool thing to hear today.
He was, and you know what's interesting, something that I didn't realize is that he worked in the state medical examiner's office. So he actually had a background in what is one of sort of some of the most tragic moments that take place, and he knew the people in the medical examiner's office. So I mean, it was a very poignant moment when those people who knew him, who had worked with him, actually had the body that came there. And so, I mean, this is one of those one of those moments where it makes us stop and remember the blanket of protection that we are provided, and it's always there, and we know it's there, but this is one of those moments where we stop, we remember it, we think about it, and we remember those who, like Sergeant Sorensen, gave the last full measure of devotion.
Just looking a little bit into the future, your initial thoughts about remembering Sergeant Sorensen and Officer Estrada?
Well, I mean, it's been over 100 years since we've lost 2 officers. And so this is one of those moments that I think will go down in history where we remember the sacrifice, we remember what they've done. And I'll tell you, one of the things that I love is, I work with the law enforcement community in my office every day, and there are hundreds of law enforcement community members here in Logan right now, and I was surrounded by them, and you look around and they're from counties and cities all across the state, because there really is this camaraderie where they all recognize the sacrifice and the service, and the reality is these 2 good men died doing something that every one of them do routinely hundreds of times every day all across Utah. And so it's just a reminder of the sacrifice that not just these 2, but that everyone provides who's in the law enforcement community.
Attorney General Derek Brown, thanks so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. As he mentioned, so many officers...
That was KSL TV's Andrew Adams interviewing Utah Attorney General Derek Brown, who actually joined us before the show as well. And Holly, he's had quite an eye-opening just in his short term as our Attorney General, because he hadn't been involved in the criminal justice system and the law enforcement community. But now he's very involved in it. I mean, he deals with more police officers on a daily basis than just about anyone else in the state.
Yeah. We're still seeing the cordon lined up just with officers on both sides of a walkway. It looks like Chopper 5 has a camera on the exit. I don't see the casket yet, but I'm sure it's close. I'm sure that's close. You know, Derek mentioned, Attorney General Brown mentioned the medical examiner, and I've mentioned it a couple of times, but there was also another piece that one of the speakers shared that not only did he have that role, but he also went to the families and talked to them. And now we're starting to see the pallbearers bring the hearse out of the building, actually.
They are walking down the corridor there, the pallbearers, that quite a walk. And the walk goes through a line of police officers, a solid line of police officers standing at attention, both sides, probably, I don't know, it looks like it's 100 yards or more, arm to arm, shoulder to shoulder police officers, men and women that have traveled from all over the place, certainly all over the state of Utah, but some have come from other jurisdictions around the country to support a fellow officer who's passed. And
they're all standing at attention and saluting. It's really, really very touching.
And we've heard stories of officers who are retired who attend events like this just because of that love and respect that they have from the community, from the law enforcement community, and you know, at the end of the day, this is going to be a wonderful, beautiful ceremony. But the Sorensen family is going to have a huge loss, and they're going to have a huge, gaping hole in their family, because this man, it was larger than life. I mean, everything you heard about him, and he had so much going for him and so much of a future for him. And I hope that his widow and his children can heal from this. Hope that the community that has long supported them will continue to do that. I have no doubt that it will, and that in the weeks and months to come, that they can come together as they have so far, and that we won't forget about this great officer.
Yeah, yesterday we talked with Jenny Taylor, who talked about when, like, the funeral's over and everybody goes home and the flags are taken down, and just that can be so hard for families. But I'm just positive the community is going to stay just wrapped in love around these two families.
Yeah, speaking of some of the speakers, his brother Will Sorensen spoke about how Lee would be the person that would comfort families in situations like this.
Yeah.
I also want to take and talk about how neighbors, family that would have a husband or a spouse die, Lee would take time out to go see them, to call them, ask if they needed anything. Lee didn't have to do that. Brother Larson took and told how Lee did the same thing. He cared about everybody. He cared about his community. He cared about his family.
So the casket has just been loaded into the hearse. It was led by one single bagpipe player as they walked down that wall of police officers standing at attention and saluting.
And like we saw yesterday with Officer Estrada, they've got the two fire engines parked with their ladders fully deployed upward, and the American flag hanging in between. It's almost brings you to tears just to look at that. I wanted to go back to his brother, Will Sorensen, who talks about how Lee Sorensen never lost his spirit of charity.
The community came together with charity and love when this incident happened. Let's not lose the fact that two great individuals lost that night, and their families. Let's be true heroes and keep the love and the charity going. Charity is the true love of Christ, which we all need to have. I appreciate the opportunity, Lynette, that you gave me to talk about my brother. I love him very much. I love my brothers. I love my sisters. I know we don't tell it to each other very often.
So we're seeing the cordon is dissolving, and I think those officers are getting ready to get into their vehicles as well. I've seen that it could be as many as 500 police vehicles. It could be even more if you start counting the motorcycles. That seems like there's hundreds of those. I'm probably off on my numbers, but there's a lot.
Yeah, and when we were starting this a couple of hours ago, we were seeing the procession of law enforcement vehicles enter into the Cache County area, and it was a long procession, and they all had their lights going, and all the different colored vehicles, and the motorcycles, and the I mean, what a tremendous parade, what a tremendous procession that is. And oh yeah, look at the motorcycles. There are probably 30 or 40 that we're looking at right now that will be.
And that'll be at the beginning of the procession. I think there are more. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
so
far,
the hearse,
far more than 30
the hearse
or 40.
hasn't pulled out yet, but it looks like, oh yeah, look, it's the line just keeps on going. The hearse has not pulled out of the parking lot yet, but I think they're ready. They're just waiting, I think, for the other officers to get back to their vehicles.
Right. You know, this ceremony, I have to say, was equally moving as yesterday's, and you know, a community suffers a loss like this, and how does it rebound? I mean, what happens to the Tremont and Garland area in the next month or so, and what's going to happen with the people there as they look back on, I mean, what could only be described as the worst tragedy that I can remember happening to that community in my lifetime. I may be wrong, but I've spent a lot of time in Tremont and Garland, and I know that area quite well. And it is close knit. I mean, Bear River High School. I mean, they're the Bears, and that's what you do, and they're very tied into that. And like, I've been to that county fair. I've actually been to the Box Elder County Fair, and it is an event. It is an occurrence. It's community all the way, and half the town goes every night.
Remember, we learned this week that it was the 100th anniversary, and so it was very special to have this parade, and then to have the two riderless horses to represent the two officers who lost their lives. Right, and then you had injured officer Mike Allred and his canine who showed up at the rodeo. I mean, I think the community is really going to pull together. That's the nature, I think, of these small communities anyway. But I think, especially hearing how much both officers reached out to their community, how involved they were with youth, how involved they were with families who were going through hard times, I can't imagine that the community wouldn't just wrap their arms around them.
Right, and it does appear that the hearse is leaving the Spectrum area, is about to leave. It's being led out by a police car or two, and I think they're waiting for the motorcycle brigade to get out as well. No,
they're moving right now.
Hearse. It's coming out. This I think it was it Britt Johnson who was in Logan?
Tremont.
Yeah, Tremont, who said, that they're closing the road.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that they need to close the entire road, but I'm certain that they're going to, at least from Logan to Tremont, and there's going to be no other traffic going in that direction.
For the next 2 hours.
For the next, at least, because they've got to get a lot of vehicles through there. It's not a long drive, but it's a significant, passage through a couple of smaller towns there between Logan and Tremont and Garland.
Britt also mentioned that she expected that there would be people lining the streets. I expect that will be the case too as this procession gets closer to Garland and the cemetery there. She mentioned getting ready in the cemetery. They'll have a 21-gun salute, but it's also very, very small. So they've been able to create a temporary parking area in a field for up to 1,200 vehicles, which is
one of the
really
local farmers gave up his field for 1,200 vehicles
I think that's the sense of community, right?
Right, for a cemetery that probably has never had more than about 20 or 30 vehicles.
That's
there
right.
for a big funeral.
Yeah, it's small, very small.
A lot of law enforcement dignitaries showed up at this. It looks like a lot of chiefs, leaders in the community, and that type of thing have showed up. It's an honor to the officers that these various entities and agencies have shown up and to show their support to the officer, to the fallen officer. The Utah law enforcement community, and I'm only like I say, tangentially involved as an instructor at the police academy and representing officers involved in shootings. Is just a tight-knit group of men and women that serve. I've been involved in it for like 40 years, and I've never seen anything quite like it.
I think we have Andrew Adams, who's been interviewing an officer.
And that's really when the community really needs to step up over the next few weeks and months and years and just let them know that this isn't over. He still matters, and he's still here.
Officer James Ramsell, I appreciate it so much. Fort Worth Police Department. Back to you guys.
Wow, Fort Worth Police Department. Yeah.
Right. So again, that was one of the people who traveled across the country to come pay their respects and to speak about the family, right? And we did have a texter earlier during the show who asked us what happens to the family and what kind of support do they get. Well, they're going to have a lot of community support for sure.
And they've had a fair amount of financial support. I know that that's insignificant, but it's a lot, and so many people.
It means a lot.
So many people have given so much. I mean, people don't go into law enforcement to make money. I mean, there's you can be the chief, you can be at the highest level of law enforcement, and you're not going to make a tremendous amount of money. People go into that career, Holly, because they like it, because they want to serve, because they want to help the community. They want to be part of the community. And we even heard about Officer Sorensen. He gets a job with Highway, and he's assigned to Salt Lake. He's like, I want to go home. Yeah, can I get back to the Tremont and Garland area,
right.
where they've got Highway all over the place. That Highway Patrol troopers, I should say, are they're in every jurisdiction in the state at various times. So I'm sure it wasn't a huge move, but yeah, he wanted to get up there, and then finally just got on with the local law enforcement anyway, with the Tremont and Garland police agency.
Right, and I can't imagine their budget is huge.
No, and they've lost 2 out of like somebody said, it was 10% of their department is gone all of a sudden, and I don't even know what the mood is like in that department, because tomorrow, Saturday, they hit the ground running.
That's right,
and
they're
all back to work,
yeah.
And notwithstanding whatever happens here, and and I would assume also, just given that sense of community, that they won't have any problem filling those 2 slots. They won't have any problem getting people that want to come and work in that area. It's a beautiful part of the state. It's a fun part of the state, and it's a very community-oriented part of the state.
One of the things that we're seeing is I thought that the hearse was pulling out, and they went forward a little. They were kind of on the sidewalk, but then they stopped. So they still haven't proceeded. I think. I mean, they could be waiting until noon. Oh, no, there goes the motorcycle motorcade. So one of the things that we heard at the very end of the funeral is that they expected the actual graveside services to start about 45 minutes after the family gets there. So we're looking at maybe even a couple of hours in the future.
Right. As I was listening to that funeral, and I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, I was hoping that it was being played at the Weber County Jail. I was hoping that the person who's presumed innocent was able to hear what happened and hear how the community has rallied around the horrible devastation that was caused here. I mean, I don't know, that's a horrible thing for me to say, but I just thought about it and thought, how would someone feel listening to this if you had been a part of causing the problem?
Yeah. So again, we see the motorcycle motorcade leaving. I see some lights flashing, but not all of them. But right now they're going past, down the road, past the entry into the parking area for the Spectrum, where the hearse is waiting until this motorcade goes by.
I've ridden motorcycles my whole life, but I never cease to be amazed to watch police officers riding motorcycles where they're inches from each other. I mean, I can't do that. And riding at a slow enough speed that I'd be putting my feet down. I mean, I just marvel at how police officers can operate their vehicles and ride like that. And here goes the motorcade now. The hearse is now leaving that huge procession of law enforcement motorcycles as they start heading on. They're going to get toward Highway 30 here and head toward the East Garland Cemetery, I think is what it's called.
Yeah, the speed is pretty slow, and I don't know if they'll maintain that speed the whole way, but it's not going to be, I think, normal highway speeds for sure.
Yeah. we've seen it now leaving. There's a procession following the hearse. That'll be a long procession of cars, and the motorcycles are leading out. The cars will probably follow, and that procession should take about another, even though it's only 20 miles, I imagine they're going to probably take the better part of 45 minutes.
Yeah. So we have seen multiple vehicles. We think that there could be as many as 500. There will be members of the community, of course, and then law enforcement from around the country.
And we want to thank our listeners for staying with us for 2 days of coverage here. I think this was an important thing for the community, certainly the important thing for the northern part of Utah, but for the law enforcement community. And there's not a single person in Utah who hasn't been touched or met and had even a close family member as a part of the law enforcement community. When we come back, we're going to continue our KSL coverage of the events that occurred today and what's happening with respect to what will soon be an interment in the East Garland Cemetery. But we're going to hand it off to Maria Chaleos.
That's right. Thanks, Maria.
All right. Thank you. This is KSL FM Midvale, KSL AM Salt Lake City. We continue to watch what is happening there at the Spectrum. The hearse has now left, and they are making their way from Logan to Tremonton, and they have closed I-15. That section of the road will be closed as this procession makes its way to Tremonton. We've watched as the hearse left the Spectrum with 2 fire trucks with their ladders extended with American flags flying as the hearse has pulled out of there, and just the motorcade leading the procession.